in the wilderness. Are flying bees up in the. Let's see each other.
We're ready.
Yeah, so let's call the meeting to order, the June 3rd, 2026, select board meeting. And the first item on the agenda is public comments for items not on the agenda for discussion but not action. So seeing none, I think, what I'd like to do is, well, I think why don't we, Vic, are you okay, doing the town reports and then taking the fire chief after that? Just so
Yeah,
that he's
that's
already
fine.
there. So why don't we do the town reports first, just, and then we'll move on to the regular business. Where's one of these arguments? So did everybody get a copy of the packet? And Vika has a summary, a typical town administrator's report. And top of the report, every month is 2 planning board members and 1 coastal water person.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go over and review it. The more I talk, the more I tend to cough, so I'm gonna try to limit my talking. But there are several reports in here. If you have any specific questions for the departmental reports, I can pass them on to the different departments. And then there is a couple of things in the TA report. Due to some unexpected circumstances last week, I did not get a chance to do a treasurer's report, but I will have that for next meeting. So I'll leave it at that unless you have specific questions about some of the specific items. Most of them on the TA report are repeat from what's already been on previous reports.
Yeah, and I did, because we were in Long Island yesterday, they asked me what was going on with the joint meeting, and I was suggesting that you follow up with Brian.
I have emailed Brian to ask him for, so last time we talked, I was gonna follow up with him and ask him for email addresses of people of Long Island who want to participate. And some suggested dates, so I have emailed him asking him for those 2 things. When I hear back, what I'll do is I will coordinate an email amongst the contacts that he provided and then the town contacts that we have. And set up another Google poll for a meeting hopefully within the next month or so. To have one initial meeting for discussion with Long Island, and then after that, we probably will postpone after summer to continue on further discussions, just because of how busy the summer gets.
And yesterday we met at Casco Bay Lines conference room, which is pretty convenient for the Long Island folks, because then they don't have to get in a car, so maybe we could do that.
Yeah, either that or GPCOG has offered to do it at their place. They are gonna be facilitating the discussion between Long Island and Shabig, just to make it more productive, so one of those two places could work. But you'll get an email from me, hopefully, if I don't hear back from Brian by the end of the week, I'll follow up with him. So hopefully by the end of the week, there'll be an email circulated with that information.
And then there were also a couple departmental reports in with the town administrator's report, so between those two, does anybody have any questions?
I just want to make a comment when I was looking at the, report from Public Works in the week where they were doing repairs to the F-550 and the 350, how grateful I am that we have a good mechanic on staff. I'm saying. With the work.
And hopefully the
that he's
backhoe, the new backhoe should be arriving within the next couple of weeks. And then the old one will be going off, so.
So you don't still on the date.
We had to, the paperwork took a couple of weeks to get through. And then they had to receive the paperwork to start implementing. They couldn't, until everything was signed, they couldn't start the process of outfitting the machine. And then it was about a 3 to 4 week time frame. So we're nearing that about 3-week mark now, so hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have coordinations too. We were expecting about midsummer, really, is for that machine to be here.
Good, thank you.
Okay, I think before we go to the public hearing, I want to move on to regular business and take 2649, which is to provide a brief update to the select board and community regarding current fire and rescue department operations and the ongoing need for additional volunteers, including summer EMS per diem staffing. Okay, you're on.
So, I didn't give you a department report, but the biggest thing we're dealing with in the next couple of months is the DEA has rolled out a new program, and that regulates all the medication we carry in the ambulance. And they're given 2 months to implement it. In the timeframe aside, I'm having a meeting tomorrow night. Myself, Matt Gross-Nichols put in a ton of time on this, and Lyder as well, and Denise Hamilton will be meeting to go over it, to see if we think there's any possibility that we can still maintain the paramedic level. To be honest with you, it's looking pretty grim right now. It doesn't look like we're gonna be able to. We'd have to buy and house all our medications. And that right now, we exchange everything with Maine Med and on Mercy, and that's not gonna be able to happen. So right now, we're licensed at the basic level. That means we have to have at least 1 EMT on the ambulance, and we're permitted to the paramedic level, so we have everything in the ambulance that the paramedic needs. If we drop a license down to the advanced, then we would have no paramedic level anything, and we would only be able to operate it at most at the advanced level. So that would be bad, because we can't have a paramedic doing any paramedic stuff on the island. But the bigger picture is, it's highly unlikely we'd be able to get a paramedic to work on Shabig if we're only licensed, permitted to the advanced level. So now our pool of EMTs just shrunk. So that's always a huge problem, just getting per diems over here. So that's gonna hit us hard.
Could a paramedic work here as an advanced?
Yes. Unlikely that they will.
Okay.
Yeah, every paramedic that I've talked to, I've only talked to a half a dozen of them about it, but they're all like, yeah, I don't think I'd be interested in doing that.
And why is that, just so I understand?
Because they have a lot, Airhack could even speak to it probably, but they operate on, we all operate at different protocols. So we have
Right.
laws we have to go by, basic, advanced, and paramedic. And you have to be brought down to the advanced level, and you really have to learn what an advanced can do or can't do.
I see.
And
So there'd be
it-
restrictions on things you can
Yeah.
do, is it? So, and what's driving? I'm a little confused about what's driving it. The DEA has these new requirements. Is that what is driving our
Yes.
restrictions? And so can you be a little bit more, can you explain that a little bit?
I can after tomorrow night. There's a ton of work that's gone into this, and, I've got some help from, one of the deputies in Portland, the EMS deputy in Portland helped me out. We went through a lot of stuff, and he sent me all the files, and like I said, Liner and Matt have gone over those, and we're gonna sit down and go over them tomorrow night,
So they only gave you, so when does it go into effect?
in like a month.
Oh, so I thought you said 2 months. So
Yeah, but it's been going on. They came out with this idea like a month ago.
They only gave you 2 months to comply?
And it's not even the timeframe that I'm concerned about. It's the rules and regulations that what we would have to do, and it's pretty stringent.
So is the major thing that basically we would have to provide, purchase and maintain our own
Medication.
ALS supplies?
Yes. And not just, and it's how you do it, the accountability, and we have to have somebody, we can't just, as the town of Shenango, we have to have a doctor. We have to get all those medications under his name too.
All of
And there's
that possibly.
continuity of, not care, but continuity of, control of the medication. We'd have to have a safe at the station, and then just transporting the medication here, and then from the safe to the ambulance as we needed. It's
Are you talking about just the narcs, or are you talking about all the meds?
mostly the NACs.
Okay, so what about regular meds? Still won't be able to stock those in med?
The regular meds, we can buy those on Boundary. We have those audited because they're, it's not it's the narcotics of the big ones.
Okay, so the regular meds, we could still, if we wanted to do this, we could still purchase those, supply those, there's no onerous regulations related to those, correct?
As far as I understand it, but we have to have the NACs to be able to be a paramedic.
Yeah, no, I get that. So, and the difference there being the narcs thus far were supervised by the doc at Maine Med, correct?
Well, the pharmacist, the pharmacy at Maine Med.
And so they're not willing to be taxed, so do we
They
have,
can't wait to get rid of it,
would we have to have a contract with some doctor
I
to
believe.
be responsible for that?
Could it be a nurse practitioner?
No, no,
What are
Yeah, what are other?
other islands or, rural communities doing?
I don't know. This is, everybody's rushing to try to make it happen. And this is like a big burden on the city of Portland, who already has a lot of the stuff in place, and they have the staff that can let them deal with it. I don't know what, I know there's other towns that are approaching this and throwing a lot of money at it, that they really don't need to, but, like the Texas, for
Yeah.
medication, that's like $60,000.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
We need something similar though. It needs to have, every time you get into the med ball, you have to punch in, so if Gerhard Rooftop gets into the med ball, you have to press in your number, and that goes to the cloud, so that it's date and stamp what time you got that medication out of that ball.
So this is a federal regulation,
Yes.
so there's
This-
gotta be other very remote communities, so.
there's
I'm-
Huge up people.
But I'm wondering, I mean, it just seems illogical that they would give us 2 months to comply with something that is so.
And like I said, I don't think it's gonna be the time frame that sinks us here. That's not the problem.
Well, but it is, the time frame is part of it for this summer, because you're saying now we can't get. It,
It's, It's not that we can't get them, it's they probably won't want to work in a service where they can't operate at their license level.
And
That's
you
true.
don't know exactly when that will occur, but it's going to happen during the summer?
Yes,
So right now, we have one person who's paramedic on the island who occasionally can be on call. What is the value of having a paramedic meds for the rest of the year when nobody is?
so in June, July, and August, when we wanna hire a per diem, which that's becoming important,
Okay.
we won't be able to hire a paramedic.
And if we ask for ALS to come over from Yarmouth, they can bring those with them.
Yep.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
So, but again, the main thing here is just the continuity of, the
Supervision.
of the NARS.
Yep.
That is basically the issue here that we're dealing with. Okay, and so we would have to have some kind of system.
Yeah.
That reports to wherever, and we'd have to have some sort of supervising doc, which, I mean, a lot of communities have that.
Yes,
They get a little stipend and it's not a big deal usually.
this is a little more of a big deal, but yeah,
Well, I mean. I know it was in the city of San Francisco, even it was like,
Yeah, this is-
there was that designated guy.
yeah, this is. This is the DEA, so this is gonna be a nationwide thing, but,
Yeah, but it was for the same reason. Basically, one of the things that supervising doc did, who was assigned to a department, was, one was overseeing QI and two, overseeing narcotics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems to me there may be docs available to do that for us. So that really comes down to whatever equipment we could get at a reasonable price to do the tracking, right?
yeah, and then who is gonna check the narcs? There's, well, I don't wanna get into it, we spent a long time here, but we need to sit down the meeting tomorrow night to go over all
Yeah, the details, yeah, because I mean, it's,
So meeting tomorrow night is with just here, or is it with?
Well, I'm gonna go to Portland, because Lyde is gonna meet us, Lyde has been working on this a lot.
so can you give us an update then?
Yeah.
Once subsequent to the meeting, a little quick summary of
Yep.
the key points, because
Yeah.
And is there anything we can do sort of at the state level? It seems like we are not gonna be the only community that could be challenged. And so I think lots of times that can,
Yeah, no.
get an extension or,
I know some of the other departments, well, they think it's I can't speak for anybody else.
Well, I'm
I know
thinking of
Susan Collins
also-
today has come up a lot about maybe helping out with this, but,
Yeah. exactly.
I know the DEA is got a pretty good stronghold here, and they've got their mind made up, and Maine Med is really excited to wash their hands of dealing with all this, because it's a big pain for them to
And
deal
who,
with.
did they supply that service to most departments, or is it?
Yes. Yep,
So big, small, doesn't matter, even Portland was Maine Med?
yeah, every department will be a little different, Portland, it has a little different, they have more medications, so they have a little more freedom to, because of the volume, but, that they do. But, yeah, we exchange meds, we can exchange, that's where we exchange narcotics with Maine Med. But how we do that is gonna change, who can do it is gonna change, and the continuity of that is gonna change. So right now, I can go into work and have, paramedic that I work with, go in and exchange the med, and then, and we have a little lockbox, and we bring it over here and we exchange it. There's some paperwork that goes with that and everything, and, but that's going away. Yeah. And it's, yeah,
Go ahead,
Is
David.
the Island Institute aware of this problem and I hope
I-
they're working on it?
Don't know, but I mean, it does seem like it came up awfully quickly, but I think it would be helpful to keep Earhart as the liaison on the board and also some knowledge of the science,
yeah,
keep him in the loop, because I do think that at least getting an extension or something seems.
Yeah, they're not giving no extensions, they're.
Well, I think that's a political thing, it's
Yeah.
not a technical thing, and that's where we maybe could get some traction, somebody like Susan Collins' office.
Yeah.
But it would take kind of a collective of communities to do that, and so I gotta believe where there's many communities in the same boat. So, and practically, what does this translate into for the summer of 26 here on Shabig?
I mean, it won't be a huge difference, no different from last year, because we didn't have any paramedics working there
But
last year.
I thought you had said you had 2 people lined up for this
They
summer.
were interested in working, but now I'm not sure that they are.
Well, that's a big change,
Yeah.
and so is it a yes or no, or can you get a definitive answer from them?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's pretty much no, but I'm still working on them, and I'm now looking for advanced. And I got a lot of connections, and we hopefully will be able to find some people.
How's the scheduling looking right now?
So what we're looking.
Staffing wise, are we covered
So
so far?
right now, we're looking at Friday and Saturday day, right?
There's no one on call for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
No, per diems,
Okay,
right? It was Friday day and Saturday day, we were looking for per diem coverage. Cause we can't do 24-hour coverage, only daytime coverage.
but we still have a third day that has no one on call, Sundays.
Yeah, well, I think they were just asking about per diem.
Yeah,
Yeah, just.
Well, and generally staffing, I mean, there's, it's like, no, it's been an issue.
Thing here, but it's standard, we have 8 EMTs, actually 7,
Fridays and Sundays is what the town's advertising.
yeah.
so what is it, so we're all on the same page?
Right.
Right.
Cause we don't wanna be advertising the wrong days.
So Friday day,
Check it, I thought we agreed on Friday, and Saturday.
Well, I thought we agreed on Friday and Sunday, the
Maybe,
meeting, and then I heard Friday and Saturday
Yeah.
later, so I'll defer, but
yeah, we can find out.
there's nobody at this time for those 3 days.
Yeah.
Of, day shift.
no Friday, nobody on Friday, nobody on Saturday, and nobody on Sunday days. Correct? Right now.
Right now. We always fill them in, people pick it up and stick around, but
Right, but I mean, technically, nobody's assigned.
The hiring post that the town has up is 7 AM to 7 PM for Fridays and Sundays, and that's information that we got from Denise. I had asked her to specifically fill out this information, so it was accurate directly from the fire department. And so that's what we have advertised right now.
And then we
how
had,
many people you got called up so far?
We just posted this a couple days ago, because we just got it.
Can that be switched to 3 days and we'll take any 2?
As long as I get guidance from the fire department as far as what their needs are, I don't wanna fill something out based on my assumption, which is why I asked Denise to fill this out, because.
Before we do that, I don't want, cause
is there,
I can sit here and say whatever I want, but it's what the group decides is best, but yeah. But I would think 3 days would take what we can get,
so I think, do you have a meeting scheduled with them?
you know. But we can schedule meetings, you know.
Yeah, it seems like that would be good, so we can, because this sounds like it could affect the coverage for the summer, in which case it affects their lives, and so people may have to weigh in again on what they can and can't do. But right now, do I understand correctly, we don't have anybody committed for the summer?
Nope.
And is this a summer schedule that people are committing to for like the whole summer, or is it week by week, or is that done?
It's pretty much for the summer, yeah.
It's for the summer,
But
okay.
it's pretty, from what I understand, it's a pretty challenging commitment for individuals, a lot of time.
Yeah,
And
We're right now, we have 8 technically, but we'll be down to 7 in June, July, I think.
someone who's leaving,
What's that? Yeah,
who's leaving?
we had 2 people get done this year. They said they'd done it for 15 years or something.
Yeah.
Who said that was a?
But you said we're dropping down another one.
Yeah, well, one has already dropped for their license, ran out and they didn't more, and the other one is doing the same thing, and I think theirs runs out in July.
Okay.
July 1st, somewhere in there, July 1st, but.
Is that someone that's on this schedule now? For the month of June?
Well, yeah,
Okay. So that'll add another hole.
Is June not covered, like this week, for example, Friday and Saturday and Sunday?
we always cover.
But it's not
Yeah, we
officially
always-
covered
There's no, the people are on the items.
and are gonna respond, but there's no technical coverage.
Right, there's nobody said, yes, I will respond.
Right.
We always fill it in and. when
Right,
we're
but
gonna-
I think we should operate like we wanna have enough people that we can fill out the schedule, great if people are around.
That's what we're trying to do.
Right, so
But-
that's the question though the board is asking, I think,
Yeah.
it's not,
Well, we're doing, I can tell you, the only answer I can do is we're doing the best we can with what we have to work with.
understood.
We have 7 EMTs. I mean, that's asking, this community's asking an awful lot of 7 people.
I
And that's
agree.
why I'm standing up here tonight.
And I guess I thought we had per diem coverage from the last conversation we had, so this is, this is
Yeah.
new and concerning information. Yeah,
So what's the plan if there's nobody? And
Want me
we
to go
don't, and we don't have
into
it per diem, so
Yes.
how does that work?
You want me to go into my, because that's all covered in this.
Oh, yeah.
So I printed out a roster. If you have one. So the yellow is the highlighted, the EMTs. Sorry, I should have yelled for you too, but, and the pink is the firefighters that can put an air pack on. Now you'll see Lida's in there. Obviously, she's not gonna respond tonight because she's only on there because she's over here occasionally and she's on the roster. But that's what we have to work with. And you might notice if you just go down through the names, we don't have a very young department.
Yeah.
So, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'd like to talk about the big fire rescue department. I've been doing this coming up on 45 years this year. I've held every position in the department, lieutenant, captain, EMT. I've been the chief since 2008. Been a career firefighter in the busiest department in the state, on one of the busiest trucks in the department for over 20 years. We used to have a lot more people volunteering. It's no different than it is all across the country. And I hear the same excuses all the time. I've heard it. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too busy, I have too much work. Well, I can say volunteers don't volunteer because they have nothing to do. They volunteer because it's important, very important. Over the years, I've heard some comments. One thing was, what happened to our quaint little department? Well, the problem is we don't have enough volunteers anymore. The few are taking care of the many. And I'll say those comments, almost without exception, comes from people that have never volunteered for the department, ever. And that bothers me. I don't know how it makes you feel or other people feel, but it makes me feel like they look at me as a minion and I'm just taking care of what they don't want to do. And fires nowadays burn faster, hotter, and they're more dangerous than they were 40 years ago. There's also a lot more state and federal regulations, like we were just talking about. We have more rescue calls by far than we ever had before. Last year was the busiest year ever. We're doing more with less. Way back when we were part of the town of Cumberland, they sent per diems over in June, July, and August. And we were nowhere near as busy back then. We had like half the calls, maybe. We currently have 7 EMTs. While the jobs in the town are very important, this is something, and I'm not slighting anybody. Where all the jobs are important, we are tasked with the most dangerous jobs in the community. We deal with some of the most stressful situations in this community. And we are doing it, what we are doing is not sustainable. You know, nobody volunteers to plow the roads. Nobody volunteers to work at the transfer station. Nobody volunteers to work in the town office, nor should they. But firefighters, they go into the burning buildings occasionally. They deal with car fires, all kinds of stuff. It just goes on and on. The rescue. Think about that for a minute. Think about all the horrible things that happen to people on this island, we're expected to take care of everyone with the few people that we have. Now, I've said this a lot over the last few years. I can get 100 people to tell me what to do and how to do it, easier than I can get 10 people to do it. This isn't a Disney movie. There's no fairy godmother gonna come in here with a magic wand and make everything all right. It takes people. And it always comes down to money. Right now, we pay our volunteers a stipend at the end of the year. It's a performance-based stipend. It's not a lot. And then we pay them to go on calls. And then my extravagant fire rescue chief, stipend. Last year, we paid $52,750. That's for all the calls and everything. Everybody needs to understand that if we don't have at least one EMT, we can't respond with that rescue. It has to stay in the station. We came up with a plan a couple years ago, but it's calling Yarmouth, Falmouth, Long Island, or Lifeline. But that likely on a good day is gonna add about an hour to the call. So whatever it takes to get there now, add about an hour. In the event that we have a working structure fire, which we do every once in a while, and it will happen again, it takes at least 9 firefighters to put a line into your burning building. NFPA says, National Fire Protection Agency, says that we should have 15 to 20 to safely perform the essential tasks. We can do it with 9. So, doing the math, if right now we pay our per diems, depending on license level, between $27 and $30 an hour, and we're having a hard time filling those positions. But if you paid those 9 firefighters 24/7, $25 an hour, that'd be just over $1.9 million a year that it would take to do these essential tasks. That's the minimum. That's actually pretty low, no overtime, or holiday pay or anything. And I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to see us paying people. That's not what I'm saying. I don't even want to see us pay per diems. But if we pay some per diems to help cover the busiest times, June, July, and August, when everybody wants to enjoy their summer, even the volunteers, maybe it will alleviate some of the stress on the volunteers we have, and we can not have a burnout factor quite as much. But we can't have 24-hour coverage, so we can't say Saturday is going to be covered. It's just Saturday. But we'll talk about the facilities committee. We'll speak to that, about a new building that housed that. So the lack of volunteers, paying for some per diems up front, the upfront cost will be a little bit more, but it will save us in the long run potentially, so we don't have the burnout factor. It takes people. So as a town, we can either volunteer, we can pay people, or we can go without. There's no other way. Does anybody have any questions?
And I guess I think we understand the problem.
Yeah.
And of course, the demographics of the island have changed a lot more. I mean, our median age is like 65.
Probably about what the median age of the department is.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so I think that's part of the challenge. And we're not alone there. But I guess in terms of action, so the select board did appropriate money for per diems. And so I think it's finding per diem. I mean, it sounds like the per diem thing is compounded now by this medication problem. But I guess what I'd like to understand from you is what is it that the select board can do? You know, I think we're all in violent agreement with many of the comments you made, and we experience it ourselves. We're not as essential to the operation of the island, but it's kind of the same sitting here. So I guess what would be helpful for the board is to understand what it is we can do. Is it to give you a platform to kind of send this message to the entire community?
Like we just did. That's kind of what I'm here for. I'm not
Well,
here just preaching to you. I'm hoping there's people listening in, which I
I,
know they do.
there may be, but I think in order to recruit some people effectively, it might be better to have a more public outreach to do that. I don't know what the right way to do that is, but. You know, not that many people listen to the select board meetings, and I think. So one thing is just what can we do to help you? Help the town. It is a problem, a lot of places we've heard that, but you know, in some ways, we have more volunteerism on the island than people tend to have in their own, you know, other communities. Or, you know, is it that we should be looking at a paid firefighter EMS model sooner rather than later? Is it housing? I mean, what are the things you think we need to line up in the next year? You know, starting from here on through 20, you know, the next fiscal year that we need to do, because I think that's where we can help.
Yeah, so I'm open for ideas, but like I said, it's, if we don't have volunteers, we gotta have to pay people.
Right.
And, you know, the fire side, if we're really thin on that, we need firefighters, we need, you know, we can't do the 15 to 20, there's no way we can have that many people. We can barely cover the now.
And so historically, have we had more people on the department?
Oh, yeah,
Firefighters.
when I joined, everybody joined when they turned 15, 16, they were up there, and I get it, everybody's busy and the regulations, you know, 2 years ago. Well, 3 years ago, we didn't have enough people to stretch a line into a burning building.
Yeah.
We did not have enough people that could put an impact on, so if your house was on fire, couldn't do it.
Right.
We had 6, I think, people volunteer to do the state 63-hour class. It's a basic firefighter. It's the minimum, Maine Bureau of Labor's minimum standard to be an interior firefighter. I helped teach the class. I taught most of it because Maine Fire Institute didn't have enough instructors. We were able to use Yarmouth's training facility, and then we had to go all the way to Booth Bay to do the final burn, and Booth Bay put it on and didn't even charge us on a weekend. And now we have some firefighters. But it's hard. I mean, we need more. And it's a lot of work and it's a commitment.
Yeah.
And the EMS side, it's the same thing. And that's even a bigger commitment. Take the class. The basic class is like 230 hours. That's a lot of nights and weekends. And then you have to maintain your license. You have to do so many hours of training every 2 to 3 years. It's a lot.
So,
So I think Earhart was next.
Yeah,
and then Richard.
so the question that's coming to mind is that, you know, obviously we can do however we wanna do it, a public campaign here on the island to solicit people to volunteer. But one of the problems, as I've understood it, is the training is not available, at least on the EMT side, on the EMS side. I don't know about the fire side.
So yeah, well, both, it's very difficult. The EMTs, right now we have somebody taking the class in Massachusetts, and we got one person that I know that's willing to go to New Hampshire to take the class, which it's a little bit more of a hurdle, not just the travel, but some of the classes a little different, but we have some people that are willing to do that, so that's great. So no, nobody's gonna not many people take a class during the summer because they want to enjoy the summer, but in the fall, I think we got a few people who will take the class.
So you have some people who have indicated they're interested in taking the
Yes.
class, and that's
Yes.
on the EMS side?
EMS, yeah.
Okay, and you have the funding you need to make that happen for them?
Potentially, yes, we'll figure that out. So in the state of Maine, EMT classes are free.
Right, if it's down in New Hampshire or whatever,
They're not
then
free.
there's the issue of, you know, travel expenses.
Yeah, and they're not free in every state.
Right.
And I never knew that you could even go out of state to take the class, I thought, because it's state by state, you know, the protocols, but you can,
There's reciprocity.
yeah.
yeah, so do you have, you mentioned the big figure once, but do you have an idea what it would cost to bring in EMTs for the summer to a comfortable amount? You have a figure, like
I'm not even sure what a comfortable amount would be, but
Well, we have so many.
well, we
How many would?
pull up the calculator, we could do it, honestly, killing me, really, it's easy, if we say
600 a day.
say three days a week, 24 hours a day, that's easy.
Yeah.
Let's use $17 an hour, or $18 an hour for in advance. Yeah, say $18. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. 20,
Thank you.
yes, $28 an hour, 22.
Well, so it's dollars a day for 12 hours.
So double that.
So 640 for 24 hours.
680. Yeah, so say 700 for 24 hours.
Because you have to add both and parking.
Yeah,
So it's a lot,
Yeah.
big investment,
right, but just, what is that figure?
times
But
12.
times 3 months of 3 days a week. Just come up with that figure. That's something we could,
But the problem is, we
12,000.
can't get anybody over here for 24 hours.
that's another issue. That's the little work of getting them for 12 and then.
Well, that's what we're trying to do now, but
We did budget for 12 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So
Based on the recommendation from the fire department, that's what we budgeted
So do we
on.
need more?
I actually don't think the roadblock would be town funding. I think the roadblock is availability. Well, what I'm trying to get from you is really what are the major roadblocks and what would be the priority in your mind for, so recruiting people is something we can also help with. But as Earhart brought to light, you know, unless there's training, it may be difficult to, add people immediately. I think you had mentioned there might be a fall training program.
possibly, yes.
But I do think we could put together a very compelling mailing that the fire department can send out saying, here's the situation, folks. We don't have an EMT on the island, the ambulance stays in the bay, and I think people don't realize some of those things. I think it can be informative, but not alarming. And I think we could get a few people to come out of the woodwork, but if there's no training,
Right.
that feels kind of like a mistake.
In the fire side's easier on training. You can, we can do almost all the training right here on the island. That's possible.
So we could at least maybe broach that one. I
Yeah.
think the EMT thing, particularly with this new medication glitch, maybe that's something we need to kind of hold off on until we know we can train somebody. But it seems to me we probably could get a few people to volunteer if we really explain the situation in a compelling way. I mean, and you could say what you just said at town meeting, but even that doesn't reach everybody. I kind of think a mailing from the town of Sheboygan Island Fire Department, the town,
Mhm.
would be a good way to inform people about the situation, because I think you're gonna get every household on the island that way. Maybe not everybody's gonna read it, but I mean, I think it's important we don't present it like a crisis, but we present it like a major challenge and, find a way to, I feel like we probably could get a couple people, maybe. I think the other thing you need to think about is with this aging population we have, is you look at this group of people, like, do you want 60-year-olds on the fire department, Like, I think you might really wanna say,
I
particularly
turned
looking,
60 in less than a month, so.
right, but I think one thing you might wanna say is something like we particularly are looking for people between 20 and 45 or
Yeah.
something.
But there's nothing wrong with 60-year-olds. We need people who put an air pack on going to the building, obviously, but that's the most amount of work. But we also need people, it's not, we don't just drive around in big red trucks and pull up and put wet stuff on the red stuff and it all magically happens. It takes some training to pump the trucks. It's not like turning on the garden hose. You have to have a little bit of training there, so we need people that can pump the trucks and drive the trucks, and there's so much to it, it's,
So I think we could help with that in terms of recruiting people. But I think we have to be logical given what available training might be, particularly when it comes to the EMT side, which is, even more challenging.
yeah.
And, the Commons is another ally that we could enlist because frankly, they need your services or your EMS services regularly. And I think it would be very concerning to them if we couldn't have coverage. But I think if in the future, I guess what I'm trying to find out is what are some of the obstacles we can lower and what are some that we need to plan to deal with? And if it's like hiring staff, then we need to think about that. you know.
Yeah, it's not, we're not a critical, maybe, but we're pretty damn close, and it depends on the day. I mean,
I
I've
understand,
been the only EMT on the island many times, and I'm okay with that. But what happens if something happens to me or my family and I have to leave?
right,
No, I think it is critical.
it is kind of critical. I'd say.
Yeah.
I would say.
It's- And I don't think we need to be alarmist about it, but I think it is critical, and I'm sure we're not the only town sitting here thinking about it, but I do think that, you know, we can also advocate. We need a training class, make it happen. I mean, I think that's where we can also do some work there.
In the training, not to cut anybody off, but for the training, if we had someplace to train. Like, if somebody donated a house and we could put, like Long Island has a small trailer, they used to, and you can drag lines into the building. That's one thing, we had the guys that took the class and we went to Yarmouth. They have a great facility over there, but to get people over there, it's hard, especially we do our trainings at night, but every one of them, and this was pretty hard workers in there. Every one of them said they were just amazed at how hard it was. You have to learn techniques to maneuver lines and everything. If we had a place to throw ladders up against a building and drag lines into a building, something like that would be immense. So if somebody has a house and we could clear a spot of land on some town property and we just have someplace to throw ladders and drag lines and smoke it up, and that would be priceless.
You're on.
So I have 5 names of people who'd like to train as an EMT, and I just want to say, having trained with a group last year, 3 years ago, with Ned, that was a whole cohort of us. There were people from Long Island as well, and it really, for me, made it an honor to do that as a group. So I know the shortage of instructors in the state of dire. There's not a shortage in New Hampshire. There is a course in New Hampshire. They do 200 EMT trainings a year, and the course in Portsmouth is remote. So what about having a group, having an opportunity for that remote learning to happen? I know the person who's doing it in Massachusetts is learning remotely,
Yeah.
and that requires a week of skills training at the completion. But if we want to be, I think if we want to be attracting EMTs, and now is a good time because it's a positive group of people who are EMTs right now. Asking them to take a course together, to me, is a really good way to approach that with people, to say, this is the opportunity, unless by any miracle you can find someone that would do a training closer than Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Yes.
But their pass rate is 95% for people that complete the course, so it actually, because it's nationally certified, just like the training that we had.
Yeah, I think all the EMT classes are nationally certified, they have to test at the
Yeah.
state level.
But
Those individuals that are identified? You know,
yeah, some of them are known to a lot of us as EMTs, and there's a couple of other people that I've spoken with that would like to do it as well. So I think being able to say, here's the course, let's start getting ready to take that.
So
The
that,
other thing,
that does sound like a priority, is if we could organize a course to start in the fall.
and get people signed up now.
So that seems like.
Unless you find anything closer.
Well, the thing is, we can shoot for New Hampshire, and then if something.
Right,
happens
that's
close,
here, great.
we can just go
But
there.
New Hampshire will fill up, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
concerned about, is the one that starts in September will fill up. We would want, I would assume, the group of people to take it together. The other thing is, there's funding in the state of Maine through the Alphon Rural Workforce Grant to pay for EMT training. The issue is there are no instructors. And calling all of the places where it's taught between York and Waterville, what's Waterville? The count, KB Cat, not a single course is available because of the instructor shortage. So I would wonder if we can ask the Alphon Rural Workforce to pay for a course out of state, since we can document that it's not available in the state of Maine. Because it's 1,800 to 1,900 per student and
In New
that
Hampshire?
per class, yeah.
That's a-
And in Maine, it's free, well, there's probably part of the problem. Yeah, that probably explains why there's a problem in Maine.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
yes, I've talked to the instructors and,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a problem. They just don't pay the instructors enough.
so I think that is a good suggestion and we can pursue that as a town. And I think we should get some political firepower on this.
Yeah, because
Because I do think it's gonna work if we can get a number of towns together, like, I assume Long Island's got the same issue.
Virtually every place has, but yeah, and we've always, not all, every class, but most of the time, there's been people come from Long Island and take the class.
Yeah.
And, it used to be, all I had to do was call up Maine EMS and say, hey, I wanna run a class, we got this many people, we'll open it up to anybody, and they're like, they set it all up. And, over the years, they don't have anything to do with licensure classes anymore at all. They're-
Well, and it sounds like we're talking on the order of $10,000 to get 5 people trained.
well, then adding some time to travel to Fort Smith for the skills testing,
Right.
but that all needs to be worked out, but I,
Say it's 15,000, but the
Right.
point is, that's not that much money when you think about someone's safety.
Yeah.
So I do think that even if we had to come up with the money, we could, but I gotta believe we can find some funding for it.
yeah, but,
So,
and I think getting those spots reserved in the name
Now.
of town should be, would be a good
Right,
idea, if this was agreeable.
No, anybody has any way they can get one person taking EMT class, I'm all for it.
and when I asked Long yesterday, they said they have an EMT for the summer, is that the situation over there? That's
I
what
don't
they,
know.
that's what it sounded like.
They
Have
have,
I hired somebody?
yeah,
Yeah.
they have someone for the summer,
Yeah,
They have someone living in the house
right,
that's moving to the island for the summer.
Yeah.
So my question then, because it sounds like you're familiar with, I mean, we can easily put together the list, because there's people you've already talked to, so that's. And just confirm with those individuals that if we put together a class in New Hampshire, which is mostly remote except for the week of skills
New
training.
Hampshire doesn't work on the week, but anyway, it worked. They would want people there on the weekend, or they could do other arrangements if they were enough, and it was done in advance, in any event. This
do we think it might be possible to arrange a class for Maine for Maine EMS training that could be specifically for that? And we
Honestly, I think
Right.
that if, because
can
other
get
towns
20
are-
people. What's the number of people in the course typically?
I think it's 18, but if they have 2 instructors, it's 36, so. Yeah,
Seems like
so
we could
other
fulfill
islands
that.
could do the same if Long hit somebody, or all of the islands in the Island Institute catchment area are struggling with the same thing, so.
Okay, so maybe
It
we
could be
should try
fun,
to, not just do it on our own, but try to do a collective class.
Right.
That could be just organized around, us.
I think if islands of Maine, including other coastal communities, knew that this one opportunity was existing in Portsmouth, then, it would be better to have everybody from Maine take it at the same
Right.
time. But, yeah,
Okay, so we can work on that.
Yeah.
I
if
think
that's okay with you,
Sounds wonderful to me.
good,
we can work on that. I think,
but I think we need to have, I'd like to offer to the community the solution before talking about the problem. So the solution is we have a class, this is.
Right,
what can happen.
that's my
Think it makes
concern is
sense.
that we don't wanna go out and start recruiting people
Right.
unless we have a
Unless we have
solution.
that, yeah.
And if for firefighters, there is a solution, then I don't have a problem doing that. So, and I do think you'd get some people. So I think you're gonna meet sort of, I would suggest you meet with the EMS group and sort of figure out what the summer looks like, because I still am a little concerned about the next 3 months, really.
It really hasn't changed that much over the last 6 months, right?
Maybe,
The group. and
Yeah, but don't the
accountability.
calls
we
increase?
lost people, but.
I've lost two,
Yeah.
but
But I think that, what feels different this summer is, for me as an EMT, knowing that there are days when there isn't a primary person on call, that that concerns me, because I'm on call 48 hours a week.
That's a lot.
And, which is 2 24s. And I think that making sure that we know who's going to be primary available is important, because it's a question.
Richard?
Okay, Heather.
I have a question and a comment. So question in terms of firefighter recruitment, is there a restriction for residency? Or is there an opportunity to potentially seek out a couple of
Right.
seasonal folks and get them trained? So then they're able to be here, because otherwise you're limited to kind of the same pool of people.
Yeah,
Right.
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, 400, and how many do we have? I mean, it seems like we should be able to do better than what we're doing.
Well, when about 70% of those are over 60.
I
That's your
could-
problem when 410 if you're a registered
I think
voter.
we could quickly go through, I can think of probably 30 people right off the top of my head that have the ability to volunteer as a firefighter, and they just that. But, it's tough, but seasonal is tough. I know we have utilized people like Eddie Leonard, he's retired from Hartford, and he volunteers a little bit, which is great, but I mean, he's kind of run his course and he's not gonna be as involved as some of the newer guys joining up, but he's a great resource. He's got a lot of experience and knowledge. Seasonal's tough, but it's a big investment. I mean, turnout gear isn't cheap. I mean, just buying gear for them. I mean, that's way more than the class, in EMT class, just the gear alone.
Does everybody have their own gear, dedicated gear?
Yeah, I mean, have to,
Yeah.
And I'm looking into some non-structural firefighting gear, so if you're not gonna go into a burning building, we can buy a different turnout gear and it'll be a little less expensive. But still, you know, $1,500, $2,000 or more, just for coat paints. So seasonally, we can utilize, but it's tough, or is the bang worth the buck there? I don't know.
Well, it seems to me if you had people who were volunteers in our communities that come here in the summers. Like you could, put a feeler out there and see anyone who's currently volunteering elsewhere would like during the time here to volunteer on a part-time basis,
That would be great.
No,
that's
it seems
actually,
like you could do the outreach and they probably have their own turnouts and stuff, so.
So I did the math here earlier, so if we, were to get, a volunteer from the mainland, paid at $28 an hour for 12-hour days. And best case scenario, maybe that's 7 times a week. That would be $28,000 for the summer. That's what I'm saying. So that's the figure. You put a dollar amount on that, could we afford that? Is that worth it? Can we even find the people? But that's what it would cost to have the really, what sounds like a very adequate backup from the Navy.
And we have about a third of that allocated now.
Yeah, okay,
So it's whether or not we can fill those positions.
yeah.
But it sounds like, I think we appreciate you coming. We hear what you have to say. I kind of agree with Earhart. We're at a crisis state, but don't want to alarm the community unnecessarily, but I do think it's a combination of things. I think finding if we could set up some training, then I think that it seems like that is the first obstacle, that if we could conquer that, then we could get something going. And then I think we're just gonna have to get together regularly or get a report from you kind of, on how it's going and what it looks like, because I also am just concerned about this summer that we have somebody who's willing to come over, because the amount of hours I'm hearing EMS is doing seems unreasonable.
Yeah.
And
and it's on a graph over the last 40 years, it's up and down. I mean, we've been down to less EMT for this before.
Yeah.
And then we get some people in and then they taper off, and some people, it's not for everybody.
Right.
I had somebody that I really respect that tried it for a year, and that person said every time that microphone clicked, their heart rate went up and they got nervous, like after a year, they're like, just can't do it.
Yeah, I
Get
can,
six to this, and I get that, that's fine, but at least try.
So with respect to pursuing the Portsmouth, New Hampshire training, what do we need to do next?
I'm.
As soon as
I gotta go. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm gonna suggest, I have an Island Two board meeting next weekend. So I'm gonna suggest I bring this up to them and see if we could get some, cause they're pretty connected, and I think sort of making this a regional issue would be beneficial, and we could probably do some.
you have contacts already.
So a couple of things, in the main, the Island Coalition I've talked about it there, and including last time when we were in Augusta, was that January or December? January. And, what's the ship that comes around with the church?
Sunbeam,
The Sunbeam, guy in charge of the Sunbeam said he would lead the charge, and I haven't heard anything back from that, so I'm.
well, I think we need a commitment from the
Right,
organization.
and so that was one of the deliverables that seems to have fallen off by the wayside, but. Ralph participated as a chief, participated in, at the request of the state legislature. To
Oh,
meet
that
with the
group.
other communities, and we're still waiting for that report, but again, that feels like that's gone by the wayside as well. So I think that if the best route is to secure what's available, that we know is happening by an organization that's been delivering online learning for 6 years now.
And
And
are they a commercial organization,
Yeah.
a state
so
affiliated?
there's a really strong statewide, New Hampshire CPR, it's called. And they do about 200 EMT trainings a year. The one that is remote is out of Portsmouth. The director who I have spoken with said that if we had enough, he thought maybe 8 online learners from one area, they could do the skills testing instead of once a week. They could do it maybe once a month, or they could do it in a different time frame, but they need the commitment of that number in order to do that differently. And
And that's $1,800 per.
it's 1,800 last time I looked, which was about 2 months ago, and I think that's the closest we're gonna have.
So I think what, I can, actually, I don't think I should wait till the board meeting. I can check in on Monday. I think we do have to go through the, not the coalition, but really through the organization. We know the president. And so I think we should, it's really Nick I probably would call initially and kind of try to get the ball rolling there. And then if you could have the contact information about, because I actually think trying to set up a class for multiple islands would be, it's crazy to do it just for us.
Right.
And so trying to set it up for a group of islands that might be, maybe they do the training here in Maine, so we don't have to send people down. I mean, the in-person,
It's so specific, the training for the skills.
well,
It's
whatever.
very cumbersome, but I think needing to have a contact person to deal with the Audubon rural workforce funding, because it's not available in the state of Maine, who would be in charge?
I think the Island Institute would be the best. to
That would
make
be great.
act, because they can represent the collective group.
Right.
So I think we make, and I think we may want, I think the best thing is to sort of put together an email. I can do that, you can review, whoever, I'll send it out to review, a short email, just kind of saying, this is a problem that we're very concerned about, we need your help. And then kind of step forward. I do think, I'm a little confused about the medication relationship to this, but I think, I am a little concerned about the summer, and I'm still not feeling 100% clear on where we're at on that, so.
Well, we don't have per diems identified.
When I talked to Ralph a week ago, he said he had 2 people, so now he's telling me that that's not the same. So I don't get it, because this new rate is not in place, so like, why is that different? And so that's what's a little confusing to me. So even if they're here for the month of June and July, wouldn't that be good?
That'd be a big help. We'll take 1, 2, or 3 days. As an EMT, 1, 2, or 3 days would be good.
So I guess, and I would like to know a little bit more about that whole issue and the timing, because it seems
As far as I know, I don't know about the timing, but as far as I know, there's really two things that I know for sure. There has to be a physician who
Yeah.
is responsible overseeing any EMS provider. And we've had one, I understand, we've had one in the past associated with Yarmouth and other, so I don't know if that's changed. Part of that responsibility technically is overseeing, you know, having some very light oversight on the narcotics, but we've done all that documentation by paperwork, and now it sounds like they're making, it's gonna be some kind of electronic thing. And so that's, you know, I don't know what the solution is gonna be that, but it,
seems solvable.
to me, it doesn't seem insolvable. I think
Right.
there's probably a piece of equipment that we need, and
If you Google it, there's a lot of information right on Google about it, and it says that, it's really regulations that, came out in February and came into effect in March, and there's a whole list of requirements. So it is easily found.
are you looking at
online.
main EMS or whatever, yeah.
I Googled it and then I read some information with International Association of Fire Chief, with DEA.gov, American Ambulance Association, Maine EMS, it's kind of distributed all over the place.
Sure.
But it looks like within the EMS fire department world, this isn't something that just came out, it's been out for a couple of months.
So,
Okay, so I think that's,
but we don't have a paramedic on the island who is very active. So
Whether it's worth
my
it or-
question is it important since I understand that it would be nice to have paramedics for the summer. And that's when they're needed the most. Also, I want to add on this list, there are only 5 names of people who take call for the 7 days. And I also want to be fair that there are people that don't take call, that are active, that show up, but they're not
right, they don't
listed
want
as
to,
being on call.
so refresh my
People are
memory.
doing their very best.
So yellow is
EMTs,
Yellow is EMTs,
yellow is EMTs.
and what is pink?
Those are the people that can use
Can go into a fire.
can go into a burning building with the gas masks,
Fire and air tanks, something.
the air tanks, right?
Okay. And so you're saying there's 5 people on here that are designated as EMTs, but we have 2 more?
So of the people whose name is in yellow, there are 5 who are signed up on the weekly calendar to be on call.
I see.
And some people, because of their work schedule, have limited opportunities, but still are able to show up, but it falls pretty much for
On
being on
5.
call, 5 people.
And I do think, honestly, with the demographics on the island and just modern life, we can recruit some people, but this is not gonna
It
go
doesn't
away.
solve it, right?
This problem is not going away.
And I know that the person from my understanding, the person who's on Long Island for the summer is there as a semi-retired person who's living in the house with their family, that's living in the Long Island house.
So that was one thing Vika and I talked about previously, whether or not we should accelerate the need for housing. I really think that is a high priority for EMS in particular, and that if we had, because we're not gonna have the housing next year, probably, right?
I was
Sure.
told that after this season, the house is gonna go on the market. So this is the last year that we have the sheriff's house available.
So I'm thinking, irrespective of what the public safety building program, because that's into the future. I think we may wanna look seriously at whether or not buying something on the housing side.
I absolutely think so, and I think that there are opportunities out there as far as ADUs are concerned that could be considered.
Yeah, and there's modular options, but I do think that
Modular and ADUs can be very much. the same.
they're sort of the same. But I do think we, as a select board, we should maybe start pursuing that because there's other applications beyond this besides, and so.
Right.
It's a perennial problem. I would say we're one of the few islands without a house.
Right,
You know, when I heard that Long Island had these old World War II buildings and they were able to use that for housing, so we need an old World War II building. And that's sort of a
we
reason.
take World War One.
World War One. But that's the kind of infrastructure that we don't have here.
Yeah, their house, they have a regular, they use a regular
Yeah,
house.
we can
It's
jumpstart.
not a World War II house that they use for their
The
town.
town owned house is a regular house.
It's a regular
I don't know
house.
What the World War II buildings
And
are.
I would say their fire station is subpar even compared to ours. It is a World War II building and it's pretty marginal, so it makes ours look pretty palatial.
Yeah.
So but anyway, I think the housing, to give us more flexibility, and to have it available in our lifetime, we may wanna do that sooner rather than later, cause no matter how you cut it, the public safety building is 2 years, 3 really
Yeah.
realistically.
And I think we should visit this when we're talking about the facilities committee.
Yeah, I agree. Okay,
Great.
so I think I appreciate Ralph coming. My concern is that the message falls on to us and not to many other people. So I think we need to find a bigger audience, but only when we have a potential solution to kind of offer.
You made one more quick comment, so you were talking about maybe involved in Island Institute.
Yep.
I think one thing that I've heard over and over is that big contributing factor is lack of trainers in the state.
Right.
It sounds like maybe there is a need to include Island Institute, Cumberland County, PPCOG, State of Maine, and have one of those agencies make a commitment to providing a trained or a trainer that is available to the state of Maine or Southern Maine or something. So rather than kind of helping solve this problem by volunteers or people, Cumberland County, I mean, just recently they reached out to all of the municipalities, the town administrators and managers, asking if there is any need, coincidentally enough, for HR coordinators. And so they're always trying to look for what are municipal needs of how they can combine services. So it's kind of how we utilize Cumberland County for sheriff services.
Mhm.
And so maybe on a county level, there could be a push for having an individual or some kind of agency that they have access to that could be provided to smaller communities that could train you, so you don't have to research out of state.
So the funding went to the community college.
Right.
And that's where it hasn't been happening. So in order to access that funding, it has to happen through the community college system. But there aren't instructors available because the rate of pay is actually less than what they earn as an EMT. So if someone is a paramedic, which is, and then you add the additional training and certification needed to be an instructor.
But if Cumberland County invests in a paramedic that currently is working in Portland or Cumberland or something and trains them to then provide that resource to the rest of the county and is trained while working for one of the big municipalities, you get what I'm saying? So
I
they
do, but
invest in somebody who could potentially already be here, so just another.
well, there is an organization in the town of Wyndham that says that they'll do the training, but they don't. So.
And
that
I do
model-
think it's sort of a structural problem in Maine
Mhm.
that needs to be solved. I agree, but I think
I think
we should first maybe address the acute need by trying to offer some training
Yes,
to
I agree.
demonstrate that, you know, we can't do this in Maine.
Yeah.
And then get the ball.
Long term, yes, that was kind of my,
I agree.
to, for long term, you solve this problem immediately in 5 years, in 3 years, it's still gonna be a problem.
And I think,
Making a bigger point of it.
I agree, I think sort of, but I do think that requires more of a agency kind of collective political movement
Yep.
than we could even accomplish on our own. Getting the Island Institute involved has the benefit that they kind of know the landscape a little bit bigger. And I think they can just, you know, they might even kick in some funding. I do think it's a known problem in a lot of places, but I think if we could just even get a training course offered, so we could say, okay, if you do this, we can train you, because right now, why recruit anybody unless we
You can't
can?
recruit without training, so I think the training comes first.
Right.
The training opportunity needs to be secured.
Right, so that's what I was trying to get tonight, so I think the first priority is to try to find, set up, organize, have somebody organize some training. Then I think it is to tackle the bigger problem of like, you know, and it is also the state of Maine is old, and so I do think that's a contributing factor.
Yep.
Anyway,
I'm so pleased to have this be the conversation. Thank you.
well, and I do appreciate that Ralph came to explain this. I am a little concerned because a week ago we had two EMTs is what I understood, so. That's, you know, anyway, all right, so we're not here all night. Let's move back to where we need to do a public hearing for special amusements, unless anybody has anything else they want to add. We're not taking any specific action other than I will at least talk to the island or communicate with the Island Institute, and then we'll take it from there. And I'll keep everybody in the loop. I think that's the best way. So the next thing is item 4, public hearing for special amusements and victualers licenses for the Shabig Island Community Hall and the Slow Bell Cafe. And I believe the application for in the packet. So this is to open a public hearing. And so I guess my first question would be, does the board have any questions? This is something we have to do annually.
Yeah, well, so the question, as far as the community hall goes, this is just, I think you just said it's annually. We regularly have various kind of food events, and so it's essentially covering up for that, or is it something new and
Correct.
different? Just, it's for what they already do, okay.
Yeah, we have, through the municipality, we have 2 ordinances. One is special amusement and one is a victualers, and so, areas that either host large gatherings and or provide food and or sell or prepare food are required to go through this process. And they fill out an application, they submit it to the town, they pay a small fee, and then the chief does an inspection to make sure that exit signs are, in operating order and everything is safe. And then once that's passed, then it goes to the board. And then once the board approves it, then it really gives them, under the municipality, the ability to operate as they described they would.
Okay, so just, so for the community hall, it'd be under special amusements,
Well,
They're under both, yes.
they're under both?
Special amusement and victualers.
Oh, so it's not one or the other.
right,
It's two different.
Two different
Yeah,
permits.
2 different events.
Gotcha.
licenses.
Pictures, I just thought that would be more like a business, but they're not, don't do it as a business, do they?
Well,
It's like if we had a supper and charge for it, I think that would fall.
That would fall into that category, okay.
so if this place just kind of had gatherings without any food preparations or anything more than that, then that would fall just under victualers. But because there's food preparation that takes place, they apply for both.
Is this true also for like events? And I'm thinking back when I was in a historical society and we had the big, our big event.
No, these are kind of more or less, there's also a connection with them being licensed with the state and being able to sell things. So historically, the hall, the Nimlik, the store, the inn, the Slow Bell are the areas that go under this requirement.
Regular and routine businesses.
Yeah, the next select board meeting, you will have the inn, which we did receive the application from the chief, but the agenda and the packet was already set, and so for the proper purpose, that will go for the next one. And then hopefully we'll get one from the Niblet soon as well.
And it comes to the town first and then we register, it goes to the state or?
Nope, this is on a municipal level for approval.
But for us to act on it, does it have to have the inspection by the fire chief for us to act? I mean, in other words, he's done an inspection, found it satisfactory, so then we
Yes.
can issue the license.
Correct. Yeah,
So any other questions on these?
No, I haven't.
I just wanna add that the manager of the
Yeah,
slow bell needs to be different.
I don't think that's the correct person under the name of the manager for Slowbell. It says May Hall, and I assume
Oh,
she's
that's, yeah.
not doing it now.
Right.
And that might be her cell phone in there. I don't know who's.
It's not, that's John Pomosi's cell phone, I just thought.
So I do
Isn't her
think we need
sister
to
gonna do
correct, I mean, I would suggest that get corrected,
Yeah.
Yeah,
in fairness to May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
So could we conditionally, accept, approve the license with that correction? Is that something we could do? Yeah, so that's what I would suggest.
Okay.
But we're not doing that yet. We're just having a public hearing. Any other questions on the license applications for the Island Hall, where Sam McLean is contact, and the Slow Bell where I think May Hall is incorrectly listed as the contact.
No.
Okay, so I think we can close, there's nobody in the public, so we can close the public, and Beacon, do you have anything to add? Yep. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to regular business. 2647 to take any action from the public hearing for special amusement and victuals licenses. And why don't we do them each individually, since one is complete and one is, we're gonna suggest an amendment, so, can I have a motion for the application from the Big Island Community Hall? License, special amusement and victuals license,
So moved.
To approve.
to approve it.
To prove it, do we need to do the? So moved in seconds.
So moved is fine, so do I have a second?
Second.
David, any discussion on that one? All in favor? Okay. So the second one is the, special amusement victuals license for the Slow Bell, and I think we could approve it contingent on the correction to the individual listed as the manager for the facility.
Right.
Is that okay? So that's a so moved. By Richard, I guess, we'll say Richard, and how about a second?
Oh, but
Earhart, second, no discussion, all in favor, all right. Is that okay, Chris, get that?
yeah,
Okay. Next, 2648. A good thing, to appoint Jacqueline Manette as the town tax assessor. Rebecca, anything you wanna add to that?
she came in last week and was very enthusiastic and wonderful. I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with her because I went to the doctors, but she was at the office until 3:45. The reason that we're having this approval is more or less to have her be appointed for this month. Come July, you'll have her reappointed all over again, hopefully with everyone else. Once I follow up with her again, we'll have a better timeline of, when her regular kind of scheduled time will be that she comes. She'll likely come once a month, like historically all the assessors have. We haven't figured that time out. When she came last week, I intentionally didn't advertise it on the website. I want to give her a little time to kind of catch up and get her bearings before people start coming in and visiting her. But she'll definitely be making more of a presence in the next couple of months, especially leading to tax commitments. So the next time she's in town, I'll let you guys know. If you haven't met her already, I would encourage you to pop in and meet her. She seems like she'll be a great fit.
What's
And
the purpose of, in July, you said?
So you appoint, assessor, code enforcement officer, everything like that annually. Usually the first meeting in July, and it runs July to June. because she just came in,
Okay.
she's not appointed, so if anything were to happen and she's not technically appointed by you, then that could become an issue, so just to keep ourselves covered, you're appointing her for the month of June,
Okay.
but then you will see her again for another appointment for fiscal year 27. Not next meeting, but the meeting after.
Got it, thank you.
And then just to check, we have enough in the fiscal year 27 budget, it's 26, 27, both budgets to cover her salary,
Yes,
her cost, okay, so. So any other questions about, the new assessor? So now, can I have a motion that we appoint?
Yep.
Go ahead,
Move
Trevor.
to appoint Jacqueline Burnett as a town tax assessor for the month of June 2026.
Second,
Second by David, any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. We've already, done 2649. So the next thing is, and this, you know, is 2650 is to review the committee reports and the next steps. And I think the reason, we did ask the committees to prepare reports, which is a new thing. And most of them did a pretty thorough job, which I thought was great. And I think it's sort of to remind ourselves that the committees are working on initiatives that the select board feels is appropriate and important, so we need to give them some guidance if we. And also to make sure that they're functioning and kind of review them, because, you know, these committees, you know, they're very dedicated, but I think it's our role to make sure that they're operating in a way that is consistent with both the code of ethics and the, you know, code of conduct that we ask them to follow, and also in terms of the charge that they have. And if it isn't, then we either need to change the charge or redirect the committee. But also if there's initiatives that we really want them to tackle in the upcoming year, I think it's more appropriate. I mean, we're gonna be probably the same select board starting for next fiscal year, but if there was a new board, I think it's more appropriate for the outgoing board to kind of set some priorities and kind of establish what we think would make sense since we've worked with them for the year. So we have a lot of committees. The three, standing committees are the Board of Adjustment Appeals, the Planning Board, and Coastal Waters. So those are all committees that exist with ordinances and they follow the guidance in the ordinance. And then the other committees are all ad hoc committees that are appointed based on a charge. So, and Vika can put it together a brief memo here on kind of, you know, kind of what the purpose is, and as she says, to be aligned with the board's priorities. So I just kind of think we should go through the committees kind of one by one. Some may take a little more time than others. There's no need to kind of beat a dead horse. If we feel like it's good the way it is and everybody's working fine, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I think to go systematically through them would be the easiest way to go. So starting with the broadband committee, the current chair is Michael Porter, and, you know, Michael Grew is the secretary, and they've provided a list of members. And I think what I'd like to hear from the board is, you know, they've already completed really their primary purpose, which was really the installation of the, you know, and getting going on the broadband internet. And so I think it is important at this juncture to kind of review where they go from here. So, you know, Richard, do you have any thoughts on that?
So when I sort of rolled off that group, the discussion was that committee was there to establish broadband. Questions started to come up, well, how are we gonna maintain the broadband? So that's, and at least when I was there, so well, that's another.
Yeah, I was on
So
it
do
too.
we need to modify what this group does? Are they gonna be a committee that oversees broadbands? Because that wasn't their original mission.
Well, I mean, I think it was in the trajectory of what they were going to do once it got up and running, and there was a lot of discussion, you know, as we were both on there. So one of the things for sure that they're doing is they do meet quarterly with Mark Roulette and go over performance reports and stuff like that. And if in the performance report, there's, you know, some kind of issues, that need to be addressed, then that would fall within their purview, and I think it's useful to have them there, people that have the interest in that can do follow-up. And the other issue that they identified was they have to work out the final numbers, but they have an overage in funds from the original loan, I believe it is, right? The loan was taken out,
Grant,
so,
I think they
was it the
received,
grant?
they ended up getting another grant.
Or they got the grant, and then one way or another, they had more money than they needed, and so as they indicated, when they get the final numbers, they're gonna come to us to try to determine how to handle that, cause you can't pay down the bond or loan or whatever you call it any quicker. It's kind of a set schedule, so then the question is really, what do we do with that money, which should be, great to get.
Do you know how much it is?
They didn't, I don't think they specified here, and there were some, they wanted to get the exact figures before they came to us, but they,
Is there some equipment maintenance that the town might be liable for in the next 18 years? Should we have a?
so I think that, personally, I think it's, and it's, sometimes I jump in the meeting, I think it's valuable to have them there, even though it's a relatively low level commitment at this point.
And I think they're knowledgeable about the system and the
Right.
process, so. And, while we're on that topic, payment is still up to date.
Hey, that's current.
So that's a good thing, so I think, and I was just gonna bring up, because I don't have it printed out, the committee charge, so does anybody think there needs to be any edits to the, recommendations to changes to the committee charge, which is really the thing that we approve as the select board, so that's kind of our role.
So are we looking at the purpose and authority, because that was from 2016 and doesn't address ongoing maintenance, it really addresses the current and future state of broadband internet services, or does that cover?
It says oversee and administer not only the installation, but the operation.
Yeah.
So I take that to mean ongoing.
Coordination over, yeah.
What number is that under looking?
It's under the committee purpose?
On the flip side,
Oh, I was looking at the charge,
over here.
Oh, sorry.
I'm reading it from the document, which is the,
But I mean, right, and so I think one type of direction we could give them is they could update their committee charge to
I got you.
eliminate the installation aspect.
thank you, that'd be.
And, kind of describe their current responsibilities and the fact that they are, I don't remember, I haven't pulled it up yet, but like if they're meeting quarterly, then put that in the charge. Because that's kind of the stuff that's helpful for the town administration to have, so they know what the game plan is. Does that sound okay, Vika?
Yeah,
Is
once
there anything else you wanted to add?
no, I think, that all makes sense. What I'll do is I'll take notes of kind of what your points are that you wanna see from each committee. And then I'll reach out to them with those suggestions and then in the future bring it back to you. So, for example, with the broadband, from what I heard, is updating their committee charge and describing what their current tasks are and providing an update in terms of the final numbers from their perspective of what the funds are and how they could be used. So they did recently meet within the last month, maybe 2 weeks. I sat in on that meeting. So in the next couple of months, they'll have another update. So maybe when I reach out to them, I can ask them to update this for their next discussion. And then after their next follow-up, provide the town with that update. Does that sound like a decent process for how to handle each of these committees or boards in terms of what you want from them and what their deliverable should be?
Absolutely.
And I think not every committee do we need necessarily to update the charge, but this is one that I think it has kind of morphed into something else. And I think they're best suited to kind of suggest what it should read, not us. We don't need to do it, so. And then they would send it to us to review, because this is 10 years old. And we would then approve the charge.
Yeah.
If I may, I don't think we should, strike, installations. Because installations will continue and there's no reason to scratch them.
Yeah, I
Those
agree
would
with you
be-
to let them kind of.
Yeah, I do think that the committee can update it to what they see as their, but I do think, for example, I think when that was envisioned, it was the installation of the municipal portion of the broadband and not necessarily a household installation, so.
Yeah.
So I think we'll let them, I think they're best suited to kind of update it, but we can provide them with that.
Update the charts and provide, details about the expense.
And their charge is pretty well spelled out. I mean, it's pretty organized and I think they have a list of tasks, which is really what they need to update. And then we have been asking the committees since this one was formed to sort of just, describe how frequently they meet because, or that should go on the website. So people know they only meet quarterly. That thing. All right, so that sounds good. We can dispense with the broadband. Climate action team. So that, we actually, or they actually updated their charge fairly recently. For the
Pretty
climate,
new.
yeah, so it's pretty new and looking at it, I think it's still, personally, I think the charge is probably still applicable because we're still working on wildfire grant and they're still working on these community action grants, so I'd be inclined to leave the charge pretty much the way it is. The committee membership is, pretty much the same, I think, and they've had Steve Hinchman has been appointed this fiscal year, but, so there haven't been any other changes than that I know of. But I'm open to suggestions on that.
I wasn't able to access the charge of that on the
Yeah.
website,
I'm not either.
Really?
yeah. So I requested
Yeah, he
access,
keeps asking me to log in, and when I log in, it says you don't have access to it.
yeah, so I did send a
It's
request.
also right on the town website.
It's on the
I know,
town.
but it
Yeah.
just,
That's odd.
So we did ask all of the committees to post their charge and when they meet on the town website, and I think Krista's really pretty much got that up to speed, right? I think they all have them.
Yeah.
Haven't checked recently, so, I will say they've raked in a lot of money this career. Which has been good, but also we just finished up the E-tip project in April. And I think that's been a useful project, but people are relieved it was very time consuming. So, I'd say they work very closely with the GP cog fellow. And, right now it's the wildfire project, and they were out mapping sites today. So, but if there's any, make some suggestions if you wanna make any changes. That's good. Okay. Next one is on my list, if I'm following the list here, is the Board of Adjustment and Appeals. So we have, since this report's been submitted, we have, oh no, Mary's on here.
She's on
Okay.
there.
It's a full board.
Yeah,
if you look at our report, it has the wrong numbers.
Yeah, this is wrong.
So this report, keep in mind, was provided to you
No.
in the middle of the winter. So any changes that have happened to any committees or charges from the time that this report provided to now could have changed.
I understand that, it's correct on the website, it's just not.
Yes, because
these-
this report was provided like in January or February, so I did not go in and change or implement
No.
anything.
I know that, what I'm saying is the people listed here is not from the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, but it's from the broadband.
That's right.
no,
Really?
no.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
What?
See?
It's correct
I
on
don't
the
have it
website.
looking at this.
Ron?
It's correct on the website, I'm just saying that on our.
I'm looking at Sandra McLean, Tad Runge, Cheryl Stevens, Mary Holt.
Yeah, I'm not sure what, I don't know what.
And the only person that's,
The packet.
I'm looking at the packet.
this is from my packet.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, that's.
So-
So is this.
our packet has, it doesn't matter.
It
It's
said
correct on
Board
the
of
website.
Adjustment and Appeals.
Yes. And
That's
then
weird.
these people down here are from broadband, it's okay, I knew
Weird.
this. I know it's not correct.
That is
I'm
very
looking,
weird.
that's strange. I don't have a good answer on that.
I'm not even asking one because I know it's correct on the website.
But anyway, what's not on the January 26th report, that we've added Kevin Paradise
Yeah.
to the Board of Appeals, so I think that's a plus.
Yeah.
They met recently, I don't know if, I think I was there, and I don't know if everybody, oh yeah, several of
I
us
was
were
there
there,
too.
so,
So they're
Yeah,
down just
that's
one
right.
now?
4 of us were there.
Down just one.
and so,
No, they have 5 members. It's a 5-member.
now it's 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Cheryl was not.
Oh, Mary was one and then this guy.
Yeah, Cheryl wasn't at the meeting
Okay.
the other night.
Alright.
So I think if we were going to make any changes to their mode of operation, we would actually have to change the ordinance, which would require a town meeting, so it's kind of a moot point unless somebody, I mean, we can do that, but somebody needs to make that suggestion. I would say my observation at the meeting was that, you know, I think they could use maybe some targeted training on kind of understanding what, in that particular instance, I thought they didn't totally understand what their role was in terms of decision making, and kind of went pretty far afield. It wasn't a crisis, but I think sort of, particularly now that we have 2 new members. I went to the training, and Tad was there and maybe Mary. But I think maybe recommending some additional training, and maybe it's better to do it directly rather than, have them go to the MMA thing. I don't know. It might be that Ben could talk to them virtually for an hour and give them a little
So
guidance.
I
Or-
put together some talking points just for me.
Yeah.
And what I had for Board of Adjustment and Appeals is the board meets as needed.
Right.
I recommend training possibly with the town attorney on the committee's roles and responsibilities. So I agree. I think having our town attorney would be a wise use of a couple of hours of paying the town attorney to go specifically through municipal ordinances and what their roles and responsibilities are specific to this community versus the broader training that MMA does. You don't really get a lot of learning from a lot of those trainings. It's a lot of networking, but kind of that education of what to do when you're sitting present in a meeting, I think would be really helpful from the town attorney.
And I would like to be present at that as well, to be better informed about the role of that committee. So if we're doing that, would that be appropriate?
So if
If it's
it's
a
a training
training-
and if it's all of them, it would have to be a workshop.
Yeah.
So it would have to be advertised, so anybody would be able to sit in on it.
Great.
So I do think, but I do think they're bigger and better, and that's good, and so,
I think maybe planning board and board of appeals together.
Yeah.
Might be helpful to do it.
that
The only
was-
thing I'm thinking is that, the advantage of just having the board or more of those 2 in a meeting with a town attorney just by themselves,
Yeah,
is they can I think they'd be freer with
Yeah.
conversation about things they've run up against. Whereas opposed to select board members sitting in which case they may feel more restrained.
I would agree,
And-
and I do think there's some benefit for them, particularly we have some new members who felt very, they were uncomfortable, not quite knowing what the rules are, so I think maybe providing them with some written guidance that MMA provides, and then saying we'll provide some training for your questions. But I would agree with Earhart. I think the select board can probably use its own training.
Yeah, that's simple, just.
That's what I'm looking.
And we did do that with Ben last year, right, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And so I do think the MMA things is not that, they're just very generic, and I think getting some specific training, and it could even be using some of the cases that they've come up against, so that he could kind of advise them. So anyway, I think that would be good. So anything else for, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals? So I think we're basically making a recommendation for training. And, so the next one is the Coastal Waters Commission. Again, this one is formed by ordinance, and they have a broad range of responsibility based harbor management and stuff. I would say that we've expected more of them than even what's in the ordinance for a while, and I think that we're trying to find a better balance. And that does relate to the harbor master position because they were sort of filling in for some of the harbor master role, I would say. And then in terms of members, right now we have 4 members, and sometimes I've had trouble maintaining a quorum, but we may have somebody else who's interested in applying, so that would be good. I think this committee is a pretty important committee for the community because well, partly we identify as a maritime community, but also, I think they really do help. They have expertise that we don't really have in-house, and they can help really advise. So any specific suggestions for them and topics that they should tackle, or?
I just had a question, I think it was Herbert brought it up, but then, in Paul Demers monthly report or whatever, we talked about reducing their, if the shoreline ordinance, if it wasn't within that kind of their jurisdiction, they don't need to be involved. It's just to take, I think the idea was to take some work off of them.
Yeah, so right now, we have a couple things in terms of, so right now, if we have a shorefront stabilization project, the ordinance requires that it goes through coastal waters committee. And unless it's in their jurisdiction, which would be really sort of the intertidal, there's sort of no reason for that. And so it turns out to be this administrative obstacle. So I think they would be delighted if we took them out of it, as long as it doesn't fall under their normal jurisdiction, and that would require changing. It's really the shoreline zoning ordinance.
Okay.
So not their ordinance, but the
Coastal Waters back in February did make a recommendation to the town to make that change in the ordinance. So they did make that recommendation, but it needs to go through the planning board and through public hearing before it can get to town meeting, and that's where the delay was this year. Planning board was never able to make the date for a public hearing for that to take place in order for it to make it to town meeting vote.
Wow, that's actually a town meeting vote.
Yeah, any ordinance change.
Yeah, any ordinance changes, even if you wanna remove one sentence or one word, it has to go
So
through
it
town
basically
meeting.
can't get done till next year,
Well, unless
or unless there's special.
well, we're thinking of a special meeting sort of focused on those ordinance changes, because to be honest, it can be hard to do those at town meeting and
Right.
everything else, so. We do have a bunch we should consider, and so we'll talk about that.
Planning.
That's a great.
But anything else relative to the coastal waters committee?
Yeah, so when I was reading about the ordinance, which again, it was last updated in June of 2014, but it appears to me that it needs to be updated around the harbor master position. I mean, the amount of work and the importance of what they do really strikes me, as you said, Carol, but I'm trying to look at the part about the section 106 and 107, talking about the harbor master and the duties of the harbor master. So I just wonder if that needs to be updated with the new position. It's not
I
a
guess
question.
what we could, so you're saying in the coastal waters ordinance, there's a discussion of what the harbor master duties are.
Right,
And so I think what we could ask the coastal waters committee to do is please review those references to the harbor master and make sure they're consistent with the current job description. Is that what you mean?
yeah,
Does that make sense, Vika?
Review harbor master roles in the ordinance
yes. And then it needs to be updated.
and whether.
Reflects the role of the harbor master.
And what, do you have any specific things that have to be updated?
I didn't do that. I just know that what we're talking about with the role of the harbor master now and what's in here, it just looks to me that it needs to be updated. Plus, it looks to me like the fees ought to be updated. So the fines for, okay, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone. But when I was looking at what the fines are for, the penalty fees, it's $10. It ought to be the same as a parking fee.
Well, and I think that we could make the recommendation to take
Remove.
the fees out of the ordinance. That's what I would recommend.
I agree.
And then we
That's
have the
what we
separate
started
fees
doing.
section.
See, there we go.
It makes sense to just leave fines as adopted by select board in ordinances, so then they could be adjusted at
Okay.
select board meetings.
Okay,
So it does sound like maybe
They should
reviewing the ordinance is a task that coastal waters can take up.
Yeah.
And bring forth a recommendation, but not anything that's too pressing or time consuming that you're asking them to do in the next month.
absolutely not, but both of those should be done in the next.
But I do have two recommendations. Vika may have some additional ones. So we just received the Maine Coastal Grant to do sort of a study on Cousins Island, both the wharf and the parking lot. And I do think, and so we have a slot, so to speak, for somebody from Coastal Waters. So I think one thing we can communicate to them is we'd very much like to have a representative from Coastal Waters participate on that committee, because there's gonna be some policy discussions, so I think they would, but even things like, do we need more floats over there, and if so, you know, and they did have a proposal maybe 5 or 8 years ago to add floats on Cousins, but I think having them participate, and I don't know who that would be, it would be up to them to select the person, and if it wasn't somebody on the committee, as long as it represents them, that's okay. But I think their involvement will be important, in fact, more important in some ways than the select board, because they know the score. So, and then the other thing that, I guess one thing as a long-term, there's two things that I think they should consider. One is, Vika and I met with them and reviewed the current status of the stone wharf design. But I would ask that they stay involved, you know, and periodically participate in kind of reviewing, particularly it was the floats, ramps and stuff, because that's. And I felt like we left some issues kind of a little bit unresolved, unlike the hoist and some of the other things. And part of the problem is that people are a little opinionated on those things, so that's one thing. And then I think the other thing is sort of planning for infrastructure at the Cousins. At the Cousins float, it's, you know, the whole system there is inadequate, and so maybe in this next fiscal year, just what are their recommendations for the long-term planning for that? And maybe we should be charging, maybe we should have stickers, maybe the harbor master should be checking boats over there, I don't know. Yeah, so those are the two things I can think of, and none of those are particularly urgent. And but they did recommend that, you know, that we change the ordinance.
And they have been meeting fairly regularly, which
Yep.
is fairly new, and they're doing a great job. They were very helpful as board.
And they've also they've been working, you know, they've been submitting grants for floats kind of regularly, and they've, so they have, you know, scored 15 grand pretty much every year for float replacement.
We're currently having the 4th float being built right now by Custom Floats. The town has paid about $3,500 on average per those floats. And the float costs have been about $15,000 to $17,000. So this commission has single-handedly contributed a good chunk of taxpayers' money being saved as a result of applying and submitting these grants and having these floats be. The only thing that the town has had to cover is the match. So it's about under $4,000 for a $15,000, $17,000 float that it's cost the taxpayers because of their work.
And I guess I hadn't thought of this ahead of time, but sitting here thinking now is if we do interview a harbor master, I think if one of them could be on the interview committee, would be worthwhile.
I agree.
And, you know, maybe that job will evolve over time. Okay, we're getting there. Facilities committee. Is everybody okay with posting? So facilities committee, and I think, in a nutshell, I think, you know, they've been working specific, you know, primarily on the public safety building. And, you know, we've heard from them a couple times. They've been meeting pretty regularly. They're fully staffed, the committees, oh, they have one vacancy still?
There is a vacancy, currently, and there's gonna, I believe, be another one.
Okay,
Um. I think there's two that we need. Moment.
so right now on this list, Beth is no longer on the committee.
Correct.
Correct, and then
But
we
Tom-
technically, I think need another town employee.
Oh, okay.
But I'll double check to see if that's a requirement or a suggestion on that.
So this committee was news to me when I reviewed the report again, that they've been around for 5 years, because, it's only been in the past year or two that I've thought about them, and I guess in terms of suggestions or questions or recommendations for them going forward, does anybody have anything for the facilities committee?
I do, of course.
And you're the select board liaison.
Right.
All
And
right,
when I look at the facilities committee charge, which was adopted in 2021, I guess a couple of things come to mind. Right now, pretty much the committee is working on public safety as a separate building across the road. And I think that when I look at the work that was done early on with the committee, it did more to involve needs of the town, including the town office. So I guess I would want, again, a global look by the facilities of what the needs are, not just the fire, not just the rescue across the road, but we're looking at, we do have needs in the town office that still need to be met. We've talked tonight about housing for the sheriff, possibly housing for fire and rescue as well. So I wonder if that could be considered again by facilities. And so I think plus the report by Addison talking about energy usage, it seems to me that could be considered by facilities as well, because while we're talking about getting the estimate of building this building, we don't have any information on what it's gonna cost to run that building yearly, which could be substantial. Listening to Addison, because if it's heated with heat pumps, we're paying 23 a kilowatt hour. By the time it's built, it's gonna be 38 cents a kilowatt hour because of our solar capacity. It just seems like it snowballs. There needs to be maybe a look from above of what we need and what those expenses will be down the road. So I guess I'm saying a couple things for facilities, and I'm saying this as the select board member, as well as looking at the information. I would like to maybe have the charge of what the committee looks at be examined again, to maybe be widened in scope, to consider other needs of the community and energy needs, and I guess I would leave it at that. I'd like to see the needs for the sheriff housing to be addressed in facilities.
So the current scope that they have is they were tasked in 2021 when it was adopted at a 5-year short-term goal needs, and then I believe 20 years long-term goal.
Correct.
So just so I understand when I have to follow through, it sounds like what you're recommending is they really need to revisit their scope, especially since it's been more than 5 years. And so while those short-term needs, some of them have been addressed, there are currently other short-term needs that need to be addressed.
Correct.
And
So
so
when I'm
revisiting the scope in terms of what the next 5 years is gonna look like in the next 20?
Yeah.
Is that what?
So when I'm reading it, it says the long-term for the next 10 to 25 years of administration, EMS, and public safety. So does that administration refer to the administration of the town?
Yes, their goal was to look at the kind of town office and the fire department and what the needs are of one department and the other department, which initially they did kick off and did pretty well with that. I think where they kind of sidetracked a little bit is the unexpected lack of support from the community when the
Project
was provided, and I think now possibly getting some direction on how they need to funnel, what they're currently focusing on, or what they will be focusing on is community engagement, so.
Right, but I'm saying that, so right now the community engagement is planned for the rescue building across the road. When we have other needs that should be addressed, I think, by the facilities committee.
Well, and at the meeting, at the presentation to us, it sort of came up that there was a phase one and a phase two. And so the phase two being, you know, partially incorporating the administration side. And I think that, to me, I think we should sort of be explicit. What I read in the charge is that it's even the 5-year plan, which we've already reached that time frame, but is the administration and emergency services. So I think it would be helpful to be fairly clear and sort of say, you know, the facilities committee is tasked with looking at both, you know, municipal spaces for administration and emergency services, and that needs to be included in the public outreach for, you know, that they're gonna do.
And do we need to be explicit? Do we want the facilities committee to consider a housing need for sheriff and or?
I think if we just, I think that we
Or is
could
that-
do that. I think right now, at least trying to go back to, I think when we started this, it did include both needs.
It did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to direct them at least, I think this would be enough for the moment, I don't know, to sort of say like, let's step back and kind of look at what our responsibilities are and look at the whole picture. So that's what I would suggest we have them focus on.
Revisit their drive.
Right.
Yeah, just as, because my concern just in listing only presented was a sort of. We're trying to bring the long-term goal into a short-term time frame, you know, of this building across the street, and I think there, you know, are options that could meet housing needs for per diems, housing needs for sheriff, that are a lot less expensive, that may subsequently, after a building across the street gets eventually built, that structure could be incorporated into expanding town office administration, so I don't know, I just didn't feel like there was a lot of. Is there something we could do more immediately and less expensively that would still benefit the town? I just didn't.
So I do think that we discussed tonight, and I would agree that maybe sooner rather than later, like in the next year, acquiring buildings, some housing. And so I think the question for the board is that something we want to assign to the facilities committee? Or do we want to make it a board initiative first and then make a proposal to the facilities committee? Because I think it's going to be enough for them to kind of regroup and kind of, you know, look at the big picture. Because what I heard that was concerning to me was, even in terms of public outreach, well, this is a $3 million project, but yeah, the other phase is another 4 million. So it's really a $7 million project. And, oh, by the way, you know, it's 25 years till we deal with the public, you know, the administration. That, to me, like, we need to make sure we're all on the same page about that, because, and I don't think they should be disturbed if it's a $7 million project. Tell the community it's a $7 million project. Here's how we think it could be done. I think that's the reality, but not telling people about that is not, that's not okay. So I think it's basically to get them to regroup, recommit to their charge. I think, personally, I think if we look into some of these short-term options that could be implemented very quickly, then we could share that with the facilities committee and the community. That's how I would approach it. Because I think I'm not sure they would embrace that, and I think it could just slow the whole process down.
And I think that it's important to take a look at what are the pressing needs. And
Right.
for example, I'm gonna give you my latest. In the present building with the 3 bays, there are 5 vehicles. Right? So 5 vehicles are coming out of 3 doors. One of them is a tank truck, which has less than 6 inches of space from the back wall. The ambulance is less than 6 inches from that, and there's 18 inches to walk when you come in the door to access the building. So, you know, the amount of space that those vehicles are being crammed into is so suboptimal. And keep in mind, we have a vehicle outside in a tarp shed. So housing those investments is a pretty critical need.
Can I ask a question in terms of trying to understand? So I think when this committee was first formed, housing was not an issue.
Right.
It was a good plan. And when, in the scope of redesign, when the current building as long-term, when the fire department moved out, there was more space than what the administration needed, which would have provided kind of an apartment type of a place. So there was a good plan. But now housing is a more immediate, so in terms of determining what is more important, is right now an immediate need housing and long-term need is extra base? Or, so how
I
do
think that's a
you, how do
whole
you?
discussion that we need to have. And to figure out how to get that answered, because I think it's gonna take some input from different sources to come up with how do you prioritize
I
those
get-
different categories of needs.
And I guess what I was thinking is independent of the public safety building, housing that would be independent of that building, I think is a priority, partly in terms of the time frame it could be constructed, but
Yes.
also kind of the multi-use that it could
It
have.
could be repurposed and.
As offices or training spaces or whatever, so I guess that's the vision I see. And I guess I'm just, and we can have that conversation with the facilities committee, and maybe we should, but I almost think we should maybe explore the options ourselves and come forward with a proposal rather, I mean, and remember, the facility committee is sort of doing this work for the community and for the board, and so personally, I think sort of restricting it to the administration of public safety building for the moment is not.
I agree. I think it would be overwhelming for them if you task them with figuring out the housing.
And I
crisis.
think philosophically, they
Could be a
might
lot.
disagree, and so rather than do that, I think we can look at it and see what the options are. The other thing that I feel like we do need to address pretty soon is the transfer station. And a lot of towns are doing transfer station, updates, study, redesigns. Long Island's spending $400,000, which is a shocker to do their transfer station is very subpar.
Got a big hole in the
But
ground.
I think we should be considering, I think we should be thinking about, that somewhere in the next 2 years or something, we need to, and Jeff has brought it to our attention. But it's not his job, it's not really public works, it's a facility. So I think that's another thing that I think we could say to them is, we understand you're working on the public safety building, but at some point, in the next year or two, we really need to start looking at the transfer station, and that might just be hiring a consultant to do that, I don't know.
Good, I think that
So-
would be good for us to
In
discuss.
terms of, I mean, so far with the other ones, I'm pretty clear as far as which direction to give them. With the facilities committee, I just wanna make sure that I understand a clear direction to provide to them. So to revisit their charge and really come up with new short-term goals and long-term
Yeah.
goals that align with kind of that 5-year, 10 to 15 year.
Yep.
Focusing on the town office, fire department, And then do you wanna add the transfer station on top of that, or do you rather?
What's your suggestion? I think I'm picking up that you might think that's not a good idea.
Might be.
I just haven't sat in these meetings with this committee. I think they are already feeling a little overwhelmed with their task, and so. I think simply giving them, my personal opinion is giving them revisit your charge
Yeah.
with how it was and with the charges, and my recommendation would be is, I know CB and Mahar has been mentioned in the past, maybe engaging them as easily as me asking them for a quote. There was money set aside, I believe 2 budgets ago in the, in about $10,000, I think off memory, for some kind of, assessment of the transfer station. So, if the board wants to kind of slowly move in that direction, maybe having an agenda item where you task me to do that.
I would have an agenda item where Jeff comes, and I think we could talk about it. I do think that, we could do the $10,000 study, but, I think sort of
A needs
a
assessment,
needs assessment
Yeah.
is what we need.
yes.
There's a lot of them being done right now, so there might be another contractor that, and maybe Stephen Har's where I want, but I think trying to find somebody who's been doing it for other towns. And I don't know who's doing it for long, but, I think a needs assessment that would eventually lead to some facility upgrades. And I think that's, to me, the 2-year to 5-year timeframe that we should be looking at that, because it's, I get my recollection is when Jeff reported, it's like, things are gonna break and we don't have enough space. And
So that's something I think that could be prioritized if the board's okay with it.
yeah, by the board.
By the board,
Okay.
not by the facilities,
Yep.
and then in line with that. I would recommend that as far as the housing discussion,
Same.
the board kind of take it on.
Yep.
Independently and have an agenda item to discuss how you wanna proceed, what you wanna task me with, and.
Yep.
What you want to have us work on to bring back to you for a decision before you bring it to the facilities.
Makes sense.
Okay.
What it does point out also is we're relying on so much town responsibility with these committees. And be thinking about, again, asking so much of these committees, and at some point, how does getting that done get shifted to the town by another position with the town? Food for thought.
Okay, well, so I think you feel clear on your direction for that.
I do, yes, thank you.
Okay, finance committee. This is our star committee. So they are still an ad hoc committee, I think, and their charge. I think their charge is still applicable. I do think they gave a pretty good report of, kind of, they're still working primarily on capital and debt service, and I think that is their game plan for the near future. I think we did get exposed to Mark's methodology, and so I think they'll probably look at adopting that, but is there anything else that you think specifically the finance committee should address?
Do they need to become a standing committee?
I think we can ask them that question. It's sort of a select board decision, but we could say, John didn't want to because he wanted to operate for a while, but maybe they're ready to consider that.
And that would be come as an ordinance in front of town meeting, so maybe a recommendation from what I'm hearing to the finance committee is to put an agenda item on their discussion to determine whether they want to bring forward an ordinance for next town meeting for adoption.
Yeah.
Great.
And it would take that long probably for them to think through what they want to do. And I think the other thing that, I think we can make it clear that we would like them to, make a recommendation, which they haven't done yet, on a, circuit breaker style tax program. And I think one of the things, and maybe the first thing on that is to sort of, discuss it with the select board because it was proposed sort of for a broad range of applications and whether we want to start, and maybe it's a public discussion at a select board meeting, I don't know what the right thing is, but kind of what are the parameters that we want to give them because the majority of the tax circuit breaker programs are intended for people that are older on fixed incomes. The initial proposal was to include renters. And, I don't see that, personally, I don't see that as a priority, but I don't know how.
I agree. Yeah.
So, but I do think the tax, whatever they called it, the tax circuit breaker program, I think trying to come up with a proposal for fiscal, for the next town meetings. And whatever we can do to help them with that.
Yeah.
And I do think they realize it kind of needs a public workshop to get some input. But yeah, I think sort of deciding whether they wanna become permanent or not.
I think since we're anticipating such big financial decisions coming up.
Yeah.
It's relying upon those figures in that committee of wisdom, financial wisdom is important.
Anything else then on the finance committee? Assuming they're all, all these guys are, everybody's willing to continue.
It's just they tended to them.
Okay, so housing committee. And so update us on the current membership, Eliza Jane, because I think is Victor, he's off. So who's on the committee right now?
Okay. Tom Phipps is the chair.
Okay,
Megan Dayton is the secretary.
yeah,
We have Diane Lukac, Bob Ernst, and Steve Hinchman. It's a solid functioning committee now, which did not happen in the beginning because people were reluctant to take on leadership roles, but I think now we're feeling pretty close to on target for where we want to be to have, we're pretty close to having a first draft plan to present and start engaging people around. But I think every meeting we start with the mandate of what we're there to do. So I'm feeling like it's.
so what is your, what is it you're looking to do initially here?
So right now, there are 4 tasks happening. One of them is to finish researching with all of the island housing organizations. What are they doing that's working and not working? What are their structures? Taking a look at what are the financial considerations. So looking at Main State Housing and bank financing and the Genesis funds and different ways of fundraising. I mean, some of these organizations are nonprofits that are raising between $1 and $1.5 million a year. Well, that doesn't seem feasible for us. So we're taking a look at how can we do this without having it be a nonprofit. Also looking at zoning and regulations. So what are the opportunities? What are the best ways to do it when we look at our zoning? But these are some of the things we're looking at is we want to have it be year-round housing with covenants that pays taxes to the town, either for the land and or the structures. Taking a look at how can what are the structures that could be built within a certain price range and how do we make that attainable for people between 80 and 140 to 160 AMI, which is the adjusted median income for Cumberland County. And that gives a variety of funding opportunities, whether it's FHA through Main State Housing or conventional bank financing. But mostly we want to take a look at how can we come up with a model that has different levels of costs for a structure depending on the size and how can we make that, we like to use the word attainable, but affordable is the standard word that's being used, but that means so many things to so many people, but we're trying to figure it all out, a lot of pieces, but our purpose is to come up with what plan would we suggest for meeting those criteria for year-round housing here. Just get some more community engagement around that and then present it to the select board, and we think we'll be doing that this summer.
Okay, so I think technically this. So I think it would be good to update the timeline that is currently being, because technically it would have been done.
Already.
Right,
This particular committee was tasked with 1 year.
Right.
Which
That was over
ended
the
in February. So having sat in on the last couple of meetings, I have seen very dramatic progress comparing to the first few meetings that I've sat in. And so my recommendation to the board would be to more or less recognize that the committee is a bit on probation, because they really didn't do what they did things the first year, but not in the direction that they were tasked. Now there is really good momentum, and so my recommendation would be is to put a timeline.
Yeah.
On when you as a board want to see the deliverables that should have been delivered within a year. Past February. And then upon those deliverables within the time frame that you choose. You review those deliverables and then make the decision on how to allow or not allow the committee to proceed moving forward.
so I think what would be good is if you went back to the committee and asked them to. Come up with an updated timeline. And make sure that you're gonna, the deliverable here is really, it says a roadmap, so it's some kind of report, right? Okay, so I think if you could do that, I do think it sounds like they finally have some traction, and so. And how regularly are you meeting?
Every 2 weeks now.
Okay.
Yeah, I will comment to that. They're meeting every other week now, and they're being really productive in terms of not trying to take up more than an hour to an hour and a half of the volunteers' time. Recognizing that if you keep it within that required time frame, the participation will continue. So
Yeah, I should take that.
the last 2 or 3 meetings have been good, but prior to that, I was really concerned.
Absolutely, give them.
Okay, so I think that's, sounds like it's looking up on the house.
It is looking up.
So the last one is the planning board, and we had a pretty. We got a report eventually from the planning board. Let's see here, because I don't have it here, I'll find it. And I think. I'm interested in what people, one of the biggest challenges with the planning board is the fact that they are 3 people. And, the lack of, they have to have everybody there to have a quorum. We've had situations where they haven't had enough people to have a quorum. So, it's definitely a problem. And, I think the other thing is, normally they would work closely with the code enforcement officer. My observation is that's not really happening, so we're leaving that expertise outside of the planning board, which is too bad, because I do think. Paul may have his challenges, but he is knowledgeable, and so anyway, that's an unfortunate thing, because I think in terms of trying to meet some of the goals. Including reviewing the ordinances and recommending improvements, Paul, could be very beneficial.
Just the select board, I mean, I understand they're a semi-independent board from us, but we have no. Who has authority over them, to recommend. For example, working more closely with the code enforcement officer.
I think we can recommend anything to the planning board. It's in their ordinance, they should work with a code enforcement officer, so I think, that's part of. And so we can make that explicitly, make that recommendation. If we want, we did, even with the comprehensive plan committee, we had our, fellow recommend an approach, and the planning board didn't really receive that very well, and we had to meet, and, and she adjusted the approach to the comp plan based on input from the planning board, but it was a little bit of like this is our responsibility, but at the same time, they don't seem to have the capacity to take on the responsibility. It's kind of a catch-22. So, yeah, I don't know. And we've had, I wouldn't say super controversial projects coming up. We have one right now that's kind of, a problem, but, I think it's really the board is stressed by only being 3 people, and they have not taken any of the training. I would we recommend again that they take the training for the planning board that's offered by Maine Municipal. And, because actually, I think they have to do the FOIA training, it's required, right?
I believe in the ordinance it is, yeah.
As well as meet with the town attorney, maybe with the,
They did last year, and I think we could do that again, but I think it would be helpful if they took the regular training, and I think there are more requirements coming down the pike based on the new housing legislation for training. I can't remember what it is. So I think, it might be that we suggest they work with the code enforcement officer to, try to develop a training program for the planning board, because he does know what they should be doing. I think the other thing that is a huge concern to me, and it was really brought up to my attention by the Maine DEP, is that our current zoning ordinances, shoreline zoning ordinances, have not been approved by the Maine DEP as required by law. So technically, they're not solid. And we've asked the planning board multiple times to make changes to the ordinances, and you can see they have a list of what's under review here. But I think what we need to do is set a specific date for those and what has to happen and why our ordinances aren't totally valid is they haven't been reviewed by the DEP and approved. So prior to us approving them at town meeting, they really are supposed to go through a DEP review. Just like the comp plan is sort of the same idea. So I think we need to set up a timeline that allows for the changes to be made, for the DEP to review them, and then for us to have a public hearing and then have a town meeting. And that's like a multi-month, 4 to 6 months.
Is it feasible to expect that that could be done by we talked about a fall town meeting?
I think as the select board, to me, this is an urgent concern.
Okay, so
Because our code enforcement officer is constantly issuing shoreline zoning permits. So it is our responsibility ultimately to make sure we are doing things properly, and we're leaving ourselves open. That's really what the DEP said.
with awareness of the ordinance that we have, are we aware of any conflicts between it and DEP policies?
So what happened was we made some changes that were not approved. So they're
Not reviewed and approved, right?
right, and then subsequent to that, there have been changes should be implementing that we haven't. So it's more the absence of the things we need.
Okay.
The other thing that I do think, having sat through a number of the hearings, the coastal waters has suggested we take them out of the loop on the shorefront stabilization. I agree with that. I think also though the town should adopt some guidance or, criteria for reviewing shoreline stabilization projects, because we've had the case this year that we approved. So the state approved a permit and a project. The town approved the project based on the state approval. The project was not built according to design, but we didn't have any leverage because we had no criteria that the project was reviewed by or conditions that were put on the project. So I think we had a consulting firm that's worked on a number of ordinances develop a draft ordinance. So I would recommend that we go forward with that you know, hopefully in conjunction with the planning board, but even if without, because I think we need to get that up to speed, because again, that's been a frustrating situation for the code enforcement officer. He's issued a violation, but, you know, it's the DEP, I think he has finally, you know, got enough interest from the DEP that they're gonna come. But it's not a good position for the town to be in, that we don't have any criteria for a project we've approved. So. And I would look to our code enforcement officer to kind of help us sort of come up with the list of ordinance changes that we should make. And we do have some money from the state. We just got an extension on that grant, so we can hire some outside help with that. And I do think the planning board doesn't have the bandwidth personally and as a committee. I do think we should get an expert to, you know, to help prepare those. It's not totally rocket science.
Okay.
So I think trying to make sure our zoning ordinance is in compliance with and approved by the state, so it's valid, and improving the shoreline zoning. The shoreline stabilization review criteria. That would have to go to, you know, public hearing and then town approval. It's not even us or the planning board, the town approves it.
And you're saying that there's funding available that we could hire someone to help with this? And real people that can do it?
Cause I don't think the planning board can, they can, you know, they don't have the bandwidth. And we did hire somebody to develop the stabilization one.
Okay.
So, but I think it needs to be sort of a board, I mean, that's how I feel personally, but it needs to be the board. And I don't know, because is there anything else you wanna add to that?
No, I agree. I think they need some assistance, and I think with the 3 individuals that we currently have, there's more than there's ability to do.
And they did talk about having have someone who's not a year-round resident on the board to be able to open that up.
Well,
So
that
is
would
that-
be, that
It's a
would be,
town meeting vote.
that's a town meeting vote, that's an ordinance change, and
So I
that-
think that should be discussed as well. That was a possibility.
it could be, it was discussed, I mean, we did bring it forward to town meeting, I don't know, 2 or 3 years
It
ago.
was recommended to take up.
And, the residents in the room, were
Voted it in.
opposed.
Okay.
But I mean, we can revisit
Yeah, I
that.
think 2 years ago it was brought as a recommendation, and it was pretty strongly not supported, so the planning board removed that from it, but the members that still sit still hold that recommendation. And that was the argument behind that was you would open up a bigger pool for people to to join the
Right,
board,
okay.
but there's the issue of with a lot of these hearings, the preference is to have them be in person, and if you have somebody that's not here, how does all that work? So there's a lot of other things that would have to be worked out.
It's not very common to have, to expand it to beyond residency.
Yeah.
But it is maybe something you could consider. I think I have tried pretty actively to recruit some people for the board. I think a change in the composition of the board might change that. I hate to say that, but. And you know, the board, all of these boards should probably, when they meet in, beginning of the fiscal year, should review and elect a new chair. In other words, the chair doesn't just follow through, it's really a process, and I recommend people kind of, move it around, so it isn't always one person. So anyway, but anyway, I think the planning board, in fairness to them, they are operating on, a limited bandwidth. They all work and they all, have some, I think are committed to trying to do the job, but I think when it comes to manually or individually as a committee, updating the ordinances, I don't see, we haven't made any progress in 2 years on that. And particularly with the shoreline zoning ordinance, that's the one that I would prioritize because I think based on, you know, what the DEP has said, we're kind of hanging out there. Yeah. So that's my direction to them is that, you know, we will provide some assistance with, you know, incorporating updates into the shoreline zoning ordinance. They can be part of the process, but I think we need to kind of get some outside help to make that happen. Does that make sense, Rita? And then, I think there may be, the other part that I don't know, and Paul could probably answer, is all this new legislation. Again, there may be some things that we're supposed to adopt that I'm not, I don't know, on the housing legislation. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of things in Paul's report talk about that coming down the pipe, so.
Right. And then the other thing is, you know, technically, we have a comp plan and, you know, in process, and they have a representative to the comp plan, so. But I mean, I think that's a pretty big, normally the planning board is a pretty big player in the comp plan. So I think getting a third party to help review and update the ordinances with the priority being the shoreline zoning ordinance is what I recommend. Does that sound fair?
Mhm.
Yes, okay.
I'm assuming if we don't do that, we cross the DEP, there's financial implications for the town.
Well, what it could be is that permits may be invalidated. And we already have, and because refresh my, where are we on the lawsuit? You know, that is still out there, right?
Yeah, so the last we had heard is, it basically was more or less over, but then the two parties that initiated initially, put in an appeal. And so the, town attorney recommended that the town would stay out and let the parties work it out, and so whatever's going on between them until that gets resolved, we technically won't have anything finished and finalized.
It would be good when we start our next fiscal year, maybe to just get an update from Ben, cause it's like, I know it's there, but I keep you know, I just wanna know, is there anything that could come up for us financially or otherwise? And Ben, I think the outcome was not exactly what Ben expected, right?
Oh, that I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it didn't go the way he expected, so. Anyway. Okay, so I think that's all committees. All right. Let's get out of here. So then we're moving on to other business. Anybody have anything to report on other business? I would just ask that you guys sign this letter of support for this grant application. That's my business. Because did you have anything to?
Probably, but I can't think of anything that
All right.
requires.
And then how about communications? So Earhart, you had a communication that you shared with me, from Mary Cushman.
Oh, right, about
And I don't know-
some markings on the road. Well, at least one in front of their house. And she went out and spoke with the individuals doing it, but they were very kind of elusive and didn't give her any information about what they were for. So she reached out to me to say, do I know anything about it? I didn't. I asked Carol, you didn't.
So I asked Vika.
I went down and I took a drive, there are some flags, I
Yeah.
called the number, and it is a company that was hired to do what's called an Alta survey. And they were required to sign a document saying that they would not release any information as far as the property owner, so they would not disclose anything to me. They did say that Owen Haskell was the survey company that hired them to do this. It was confirmed that there's no plans of ripping up a town road, because my concern with the way that the markings were, that somebody was planning to like cut the town road and bury some underground line. That's not what's happening, but somebody within that neighborhood definitely, has hired an engineering company to do, a survey company to do a very in-depth survey of their property. He couldn't tell me which property it was, he couldn't tell me the name of the property owner. And so I have a feeling that, the survey company is not gonna be able to release that either. I have a slight suspicion on which property owner it is. I don't wanna
Sure.
go in too much detail about it, but, I did communicate with Owen Haskell about surveys that the town was looking to engage. I am planning on receiving some information from, the gentleman that I'm in contact with by the end of the week. If I don't, I'll follow up with him. And I am planning to. I was gonna email, but I'm gonna wait until I hear from him and then try to engage and see if I can get any additional information.
Yeah.
They have to apply for a permit to do such work.
Yeah.
So right now, all it is they're just having a boundary survey done, a very detailed boundary survey done of their property. Which property, any of that information, I don't know, but there is no intent to cut any kind of town.
It looked like someone's gonna put a line, a pipeline or underground utility line in the road, that's the impression.
Yeah.
Right, and it does seem that being that the road is town property, that spray marking town property, town ought to, you know.
And
have
that's
some
what I shared, I said, a lot of the marking is directly on town property, and if you look, there is at least 3 properties that it's all kind of connected to, and so it's hard to figure out which property owner would be. And he said that what they were doing in that was determining lines and trying to find which lines, whether they're underground or above ground, go to the property. And commonly this kind of survey is done if somebody is planning to sell their piece of land, or if they're really trying to engage in determining the exact detailed property lines of their
And I
property.
imagine they're not all that solid down. It's probably hard to figure out, houses may not be where you think they'd be.
Yeah, it seems like the town at least should be informed,
I don't think so.
you know, it doesn't seem right to me.
No, I agree.
But did you wanna bring that back to Mary, or do you want Vika to speak to her?
I can bring that back to her.
But that's why he couldn't disclose anything, because he signed a document saying that he can't.
Okay,
Which makes it sound spooky right there.
it,
right?
it does a little, well, yeah, and I don't know exactly how I said to her, but you know. She's not one for just
Yeah,
rolling with it, she's like, no, that doesn't sound right.
Just pass the smell test.
Yeah, exactly.
anything else? On communications?
I don't think so, probably, but right now I can't think of one, and I didn't prepare to write down a schedule. I had
Anybody
time,
else
so
with any
apologize.
important communications? And I would just mind you, Vika, I think it's a nice thing on the town administrative report, she has a list of all the upcoming meetings, and I would, there is a planning board meeting on, so we have town meeting on Saturday, there's a planning board meeting on Monday, elections are Tuesday. It's quite a bit going on in the month of June. So, anyway, I just,
Yeah, and there's probably more that's been added since I wrote that, so town website. Check it for the current.
but it's like that from now to the end of August in my.
Is what?
It seems like now to the end of August, that's what happens, so. But anyway, all right, so our next meeting is the last meeting of this fiscal year, and that's 2 weeks today. And we are putting together an agenda. And if there's anything anybody wants to put on it, let me know, and then, and one thing Vika mentioned today is. Will at some point review, I sort of did it myself, but I think reviewing kind of our goals for the select board for this fiscal year at some point. in the next fiscal year and kind of reestablishing those would be good. But I do think that's been, I mean, I think everybody agrees the retreat thing is valuable. Yeah.
Do we have minutes to approve?
minutes.
Oh, sorry, Chris, before we adjourn. So, yeah, the minutes from the 20th. May 20th, can I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by David, second by Liza, all in favor? Okay. So how about a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second,
I don't want to.
I'll second.
second by Richard. All in favor?
That was fun here.